Easy, Chair of Babergh District Council, and therefore will be chairing this meeting tonight. However, before the meeting commences, I would like to take this opportunity to say how sorry I was to hear about the recent passing of Chris Knock. Many here will remember Chris as a dedicated communities officer who worked for the councils for 6 years prior to his retirement last year. Chris was also the chairman of Battersford Parish Council for 20 years and a previous chairman of the Suffolk NFU. On behalf of the council, I would like to extend our sincere condolences to his family and friends. And taking from this, I'm asking you to consider a 2-minute period of self-contemplation, considering the issues facing you tonight and how you will respond to them with the due deference and professionalism that we expect. 2 minutes from now. Yeah, you can. Thank you very much. Before we proceed, can I remind members and our visitors of domestic arrangements. Toilets are situated outside the meeting room, opposite the stairs. Cold water is available in the breakout area outside the meeting room and near the toilets. If the fire alarm should sound, please leave the meeting room by following the fire exit signs and meet on the Ipswich Town Football Club training pitch. No comments, please, given that Ipswich is playing tonight. Do not re-enter the building until you are told it is safe to so do. Please switch off all mobile phones or turn them to silent. I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be filmed except where there are confidential or exempt items. If you make a representation to the meeting, you will be deemed by the council to have considered to being filmed. By entering this meeting, you are also consenting to being filmed by the council and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. The Council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. Can I ask councillors to speak clearly and directly into their microphones and not to hold any papers in front of the microphones when speaking? Now I shall move to the agenda. Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We have received apologies from Councillor Alison Owen and Councillor Bryn Harron.
Thank you. The Monitoring Officer has granted dispensation for all councillors with regard to the budget papers. Are there any further declarations of interest? No? Moving on. BC 20/23/35 to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of January 2024 for accuracy only. Are there any issues with accuracy? Councillor Maybury?
Sorry, Chairman, got to find it. Oh, can't hear me. Yes, on page 14, 83.3, when we're talking about the flooding and assistance to farmers, it was actually my colleague, Councillor Rees, who raised the issue about farmers, and I would like that recorded, please. And it was also myself who expressed sympathy and best wishes to those affected by the flooding. So I'd like that recorded. Thank you very much. My other point is, if I may, I have to find it. Sorry about this. Too many pages. But yes, page 10. As a response from Councillor Ward. And it was said, I just think that Councillor Ward being recorded as saying fiddling with government structures is a bit like not giving due reverence to what we actually do as a council. So I'm just pointing that out. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Holt.
Thank you. Page 11, 80.11. Councillor Ward stated that he did not have the exact figures and would inform councillors outside the meeting. Some 4 weeks later, and I and other members have still not had those exact figures. So it's perhaps not an adjustment, but it's just a point that Councillor Ward has not come back to members and myself with those figures.
Well, at the moment we're considering the accuracy of the minutes.
Well, I'm considering the accuracy of the response.
Okay, we will follow that up on your behalf.
Thank you.
Has anybody else got any comment to make on the accuracy of the minutes? Or can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Plum and a seconder, Councillor Saw. All those in favour? Councillor Saw voted. It's carried, okay. Thank you very much. That's carried. BC/23/36, announcements from the Chair and Leader. This paper is for noting, and I presume you've all noted it, so we can move on to Councillor Ward, Acting Leader, to make his announcements.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Firstly, I just wanted to comment. I also was very sorry to hear the news of the death of Chris Knock. I've known him since school days, and he was always a very well respected and liked pupil at school, and That's continued into his later life afterwards. Firstly, I'm delighted to announce that Babergh and Mid Suffolk have been named a finalist for the UK Council of the Year at the prestigious IEASY Public Sector Transformation Awards in 2024. Although we have in the past won IEASY Awards in 2020, 2021 and also last year, this is no mean feat, and it is fantastic recognition for everyone's hard work, innovation and dedication. We face many challenges in local government, but our teams always step up to deliver for residents and communities. The award ceremony is on the 6th of March in London, and I'm sure we will all have our fingers crossed. I would also like to congratulate our building control team, who won the National Industry Award for their work on Black Pheasant Barn in Sudbury. Moving on to locality awards, I'm sure all councillors are aware but I would like to remind you that we have until the 22nd of March to spend any remaining locality award budgets. Our websites contain guidance as to how locality funding can be spent, including the full eligibility criteria and a breakdown of all eligible projects. At the end of the financial year, our communications team will be doing a broad celebration of all the ways in which you've all helped communities using the awards. I'd like to raise awareness of a free event focused on making Suffolk's older homes more energy efficient, which takes place at the Hold in Ipswich on the 6th of March. The Retrofit Solutions Conference is open to homeowners, landlords and building professionals. It will feature case studies and expert advice on providing innovative retrofit solutions to help increase energy efficiency in properties of all types. You can all sign up on the Green Suffolk website. Finally, I just want to let you all know about the litter picking that residents of one of my parishes, Holt and St Mary, have been doing. They have compiled a full audit of everything they collected in 2023, and it is quite a haul. In total, they collected 3,320 litres of all sorts of rubbish, some of it quite revolting. It is depressing to see the amount and also the nature of the litter discarded. However, it is also inspiring to know that the residents of Holt and St Mary really care about their community and are prepared to put in so much effort to keep it clean and tidy. I'm sure the problem is replicated in most of our communities, and we must do all we can to help our residents combat this plague. And finally, Councillor Holt, I am sorry that I hadn't got back to you. That was remiss of me. The numbers you want are approximately £270,000 per council for 2022-23, and approximately £150,000 per council for 2023 to 24. There will also be deferred interest payments of £9,500 per council. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. I now move to questions by councillors in accordance with the council procedures. Oh no, before that. Questions by the public in accordance with council procedure rules, sorry. However, we have not received any. So we can move on to councillors' questions in accordance with council procedure rules. And I refer you to the question in the table and papers from Councillor Riley. Please, can you ask your question, sir?
I would like to, Madam Chairman, unfortunately, I've mislaid my question.
Your question is, what is the split between ourselves and Mid Suffolk for the cost of the Chief Executive, for example, salary, allowances, pension provision, etc.?
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay, Councillor Ward, can you reply to that question?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Riley. All officers work for both councils, and apportionment is generally 50-50. Any exceptions to this are specified by service area in the staff cost-sharing addendum to the inter-authority agreement. The splits are reviewed annually based on demand during the year to ensure that they remain correct. Specifically, I can confirm that all SLT costs, including the Chief Executive, are split exactly 50-50 between Babergh and Mid Suffolk. This cost sharing is the principal benefit of our successful working together partnership, which is now in its 13th year of delivering valuable savings for both councils.
Councillor Riley, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
I would. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
And note it's a question, please.
Very well. It is a question indeed. The population of Babergh is 92,000. And the population of Mid Suffolk is 102,000. On the basis that we split senior leadership team costs on a population basis, it means we're giving we in Babergh are subsidising Mid Suffolk's senior leadership team costs by 11%. On what basis do we split the split these costs down the middle, when Mid Suffolk absorbs more of the time and energy than we do, and yet we are paying for it. End of question.
Thank you. Councillor Ward, would you like to respond?
I refute that assertion about the senior leadership team. They work equally for both councils.
Thank you. We now move on to BC/23/37, which is the empty homes and second homes policy. I would like to invite Councillor Carter to introduce the paper and to move the recommendations in the report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to introduce paper BCA 2337, Empty Homes and Second Home Policy. This report aims to give a summary of the existing council tax fees for vacant properties and second homes in Babergh, while also suggesting revisions to the policy regarding premiums starting on April 1st, 24, to align with the new legislative alterations. With an abundance of empty and second homes in Babergh, the government's recent changes now is the opportune moment to take a critical eye to the existing premium scheme and make necessary updates, which is why, before you today, you have three options, though I don't believe the third option, to do nothing, is either sensible or viable in the long term. Option 1, to introduce the changes to the empty homes premium and introduce a premium for second homes, or option 2, implementing only one of the proposed changes. Both myself and officers strongly encourage Council to adopt the new homes and second home premiums policy for 24-25 as outlined in Appendix A.3.2. By doing so, we demonstrate our commitment to addressing the housing challenges in our community and working towards a fairer system for all residents. Additionally, by delegating authority to the Director of Housing, we ensure that policy can be adjusted in accordance with government guidelines and our Council's objectives, aligning us towards a more inclusive future. I ask of you that together we take this important positive change and progress. As I previously said to Cabinet, regarding empty homes, we are striving to empower landlords to transform vacant homes into safe spaces where tenants can thrive, fostering collaboration between us and them to bring the vision to life. And regarding second homes, the proposition that individuals with a second home should pay higher council tax embodies the noble principle of equality. With the privilege of owning multiple properties comes an increased access to local resources and amenities, all made possible by the diligent efforts of the council. It is only fair that those with multiple dwellings contribute proportionately to uphold the services they enjoy, along with those available in their primary residence. By ensuring a fair distribution of costs, we can collectively promote an environment of balance and accountability where everyone contributes towards the betterment of the community. I would like to direct your attention to point 4.8 and 4.9 in your agenda. An analysis was carried out to see how things are now and what they could be like if changes are made. In 4.8, the table displays the distribution of vacant properties in November 23 and projects the situation as of the 1st of April 24, when a premium is introduced after 12 months based on council tax bands. Referencing table 4.9, it is evident that implementing this premium will lead to a noteworthy rise in the number of properties subject to change. The proposal for empty homes and second home premium policies aims to address the issue of nearly 600 empty homes in Babergh. The policy seeks to encourage landlords to bring these properties back into use by implementing higher council tax rates for homes left empty for extended periods of time. It is believed that the policy could help tackle the shortage of housing, alleviate pressure on prices, and make housing more accessible for local residents who are currently priced out of the market. The long-term empty premium changes for 2024 and would be an additional 27,000 for Babergh, although what we really want is to get properties occupied and brought back into use as homes and increase the supply of housing. Regarding temporary dwellings, there are around 570 second homes in Babergh. If the proposals were accepted, the owners of those second homes would see their council tax bill double, meaning more income for the council to spend on services and amenities for the district. 1.1 million would be raised from the second home policy, with Babergh receiving around 9%, equating to around 106,000. In conclusion, I'm thrilled to present this opportunity to fellow councillors to delve into the potential of unlocking untapped revenue and providing homes for those in need. Every home, whether empty or additional, needs to be levelled with the council tax bill in our borough. Let's act now to bring vacant properties to life and offer suitable housing opportunities to individuals seeking a place to call home. I ask you to want to join me in implementing enhancements to the empty homes premium and embracing a premium for second homes. I'm happy to propose the recommendations and to engage in further discussion, and I welcome any inquiries. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Davis. We'll now move to questions. Councillors may ask as many questions as they wish. However, they must be relevant to the subject under discussion and must be a question. Councillor Beer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question's regarding bottom of page 27, 4.3, and then the top of page 28. I'll just read it out because I don't understand it to the Cabinet member. Properties undergoing probate. As we know, it can take an awful long time for that to be sorted out, and it's right that it should be at least 12 months. But anyway, it goes on to say, the exceptions would start once probate or letters of administration is granted. This will not affect the Class F council tax exemption or the ability for the council to charge its determined rate of council tax following the expiry of the Class F exemption. Perhaps I'm Vic, but I don't know what Class F means. Perhaps you could tell me.
Councillor Carter.
If I am honest, I am not sure.
I'll hear you.
Sorry, if I'm honest, I'm not sure, and I would have to defer. I'm very sorry.
I don't know. Does somebody know?
Andrew Wilcox, yes, I do. I do.
Oh, do you?
Mr. Wilcox, are you going to reply, please?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you.
So, Class F exemption, if a property...
Can I just hold you there a minute? Can we have one meeting, please? If you want to speak, you put your hand up. One of us on the bench here will see it. But I will not have a discussion on who's going to ask a question, where, when, how or why. Mr. Wilcox, proceed.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So, a Class F exemption, where a property becomes unoccupied because the resident's passed away, they don't pay council tax up until the point letters of administration or probate is granted. They get a further 6 months. What the policy is suggesting, we would then extend it for 12 months before any premium kicks in to obviously give an opportunity for something to happen with that property.
Thank you. Councillor Beer?
Thank you. I dare say that is very helpful, but what is the Class F reference? Council tax, because I assumed, and I think most people did, that it was one of the bands, but it's not, is it? I don't know why they call it Class F, because that's confusing. It's certainly
Just a minute,
confusing.
Councillor Jameson has his hand up. No? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wilcox.
Thank you, Chair. So, when the government introduced council tax, they introduced lots of exemptions, starting at A, and I think it ends about W. So, F is the one that deals with probate.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Councillor Holt?
Page, where are we? Page 19, 4.7. Government has indicated there will be some exceptions to both the long-term empty premium and the second premium being charged. Regulations are expected to cover these exceptions in the new year. Is that this new year? Was this paper written last year? Or is the new year referring to January 25 onwards? A bit of clarity on that, please.
Mr. Wilcox.
Yes, the paper was written just before Christmas. We are still waiting for those regulations. However, the policy has been written taking into account the exceptions that was in the consultation last summer. It is a discretionary policy, so even if the government don't set the regulations, as a council, you can still agree to have those exceptions in the policy.
Does that clarify matters? I go to Councillor Jameson, then Councillor Holt.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Rees and Maybury.
In a situation where member of the family gets taken into care without any power of attorney, which is the situation our family's in at the moment, and the empty home can then lay empty for indefinite amount of period. So what is the situation of someone taken into care who's not coming out of care, but you can't do anything about the house?
Thank you, Chair. There are exemptions that cover where a property is left empty because somebody's moved into care, so this premium wouldn't impact on that.
Thank you. Councillor Holt, you have a question?
Yeah. Was this policy written to generate income, or was this policy written to generate more housing becoming available to the market?
Councillor Carter?
The aim was to definitely bring houses. One second, sorry. The aim was to definitely bring
Houses back into use. The income, which would be a loss of income for those, is an incentive to bring the houses back into use.
Thank you. Councillor Rees, you have a question?
Oops. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I'd like to ask, please, how is it verified that something is a second home as opposed to a primary residence, and what are the costs associated with managing this system, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
Definition of a second home is a property that's not somebody's main resident and is furnished, and generally the customers tell us of this at the moment because there are different council tax charges depending on whether it's unoccupied and unfurnished or just periodically occupied but furnished. So we don't go and inspect unless there are some general concerns. We do tend to get customers when they're moving in and out of properties, update us of the state of the property, whether it's left furnished or unfurnished.
Thank you. Councillor Maybury, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I actually have two, but I'll just ask one at the moment. Under the recommendations 3.2, it states that the council delegates authority to the Director of Housing in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Housing. However, on page 29, it actually says under 4.4, therefore the Council Section 151 officer is granted delegated powers to amend the policy in line with legislative or government requirements. So should that not have been within the recommendations, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
The recommendation is correct. The draft policy is an error, so depending on the outcome tonight, the policy we have changed to agree the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Holt?
Thank you, Chair. I just questioned whether it's prudent to actually bring this paper now without the government exceptions list being available. I note on 6.3, it's recognised that this estimate could be reduced once government legislates for the exceptions. So it calls into question whether the timing of this is actually right. And I would also question how it will deliver. I suspect the main drive for this is to bring housing and reduce our housing number waiting lists. And I would just question how this paper is actually going to do that. It may well bring a little bit more income, but possibility is, I suspect, that those with second homes are not those that can't afford them, and that this paper alone will not bring housing back into the market. And it's not market housing we want, it's social housing we need. So it's just the timing of it, really, without all the evidence available. It's a little bit hit and miss with projections, and as we know, we're not that good at projections. So although I sympathise with the policy and agree with its principles, it's just the time.
Councillor Holt, are you asking a question, or have you gone into debate without the rest of us?
I'll leave that up to you, Chair, but I've thoroughly enjoyed that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maybury, do you have another question?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Page 30, under item 7, which we're talking about finance here. I'm a bit concerned under 7.2. Any reduction granted under S13A in brackets 1 in bracket C will be financed through the council's general fund. So, hello, is everyone going to be, everybody who pays council tax, going to be funding somebody's reduction in this policy? Because I understand, or perhaps someone will correct me if I'm wrong, that any reduction in council tax is usually done under the shared revenue account. Thank you.
Mr Wilcox, can you reply, please, on behalf of Councillor Carter?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So within the policy, there is discretion in case there are any cases that we feel the premium isn't appropriate, and if the council tax is reduced, then under that section 13(1)(a), that does come from, is funded by the bidding authorities to the general fund. But I said that is the exceptions. So.
Thank you. Have we finished with questions and now we can move on to debate? Another question?
Well, Madam Chairman, it's clarification because I'm really sorry, Andrew, but I didn't actually understand that. So perhaps you, and it could be that I was having a drink of water so I didn't cough, but could you just repeat that, please? Thank you.
So within the policy, there is a discretionary element that we already have a discretionary hardship policy that where there are exceptional circumstances, we will look at whether, you know, perhaps to waive some of the council tax due. That is a general fund cost, so it's built in to this policy.
Has that clarified matters for you, Councillor Maybury?
It does, Chairman, but I don't know if I'm happy with the answer. Don't know if I like
That's
the policy.
often the case.
Thank you.
Councillor McGraw.
Just on behalf of the Shared Revenues Partnership, I think I'm correct in saying that these sort of discretionary payments are very rare indeed. I think Andrew would agree with me there. In the 3 or 4 years I've been on the SRP, we meet every quarter, we go through the figures, and the impact on the general fund, and therefore every council taxpayer, I would argue, is incredibly minimal.
Thank you for that. Can we now move to debate, please, councillors? Who would like to open the debate? Councillor Maybury.
Yes, I'm going to go back to Councillor McCraw. We had a conversation, did we not, at the last council meeting, Councillor, when we were talking about what you thought was minimal and what I thought was minimal, and whether we should not be worried about people's taxpayers' money. So I'll just bring that to the fore. Thank you.
Councillor McCraw.
In that instance, then, I would like to come back with the figures that Councillor Maybury is requesting on the type of discretionary payments that are made through the Shared Revenues Partnership that do have any relevance to the general fund. Would that be reasonable, Andrew? I think we could assemble those figures relatively straightforwardly. Andrew has everything at his fingertips, and I think we have another meeting in, is it a couple of months, Andrew? A couple of weeks, so there you go. It could be very quick, and you'll have the figures sent in an email to you, if that's okay, Councillor Maybury.
That would be really, really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more debate? Councillor Ward.
Yeah, I just wanted to come back on Councillor Holt's comment about whether it's to generate revenue, increase housing, and whether it's, in fact, we need social housing rather than market housing. The point is, this is to bring back property into the rental market, because we're seeing a decrease in the amount of properties available on the private rental markets, and we do need to increase that because there is a huge demand for that. Prices are going up simply because the demand is there and supply isn't. And we need to distinguish also between empty and second homes. We want to encourage, obviously, empty homes back into the market, but also where second homes are not being utilised as much as possible, we want those in the market as well for private rent. The success of this policy will be a decrease in the number of empty and second homes and a decrease in the amount of additional council tax coming back because we want to see these properties available for people to live in.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Holt, you have already contributed to the debate.
No, he hasn't.
Well, that's
Oh, he
your
hasn't?
discretion.
Well, that was your discretion.
All right, okay.
Just come back to Councillor Wardley. I think,
Okay.
Again, sentiment's great, but how this can actually make an individual put their house onto the rented market is questionable. It's down to the owner and whether they want to do it. This will not necessarily drive that individual to do what you want them to do. But I understand your words. But I just think the success of this is questionable and the enforcement of it is non-existent. So the wishes are there. Whether it will deliver and whether the results of officers' time proves to be worthy is yet to be proven. But yeah, let's hope it does work, but I'm not sure it will.
Okay. Do you want to wrap up, Councillor Carter? Because if debate's finished, the floor is yours to wrap it up.
Well, I can do. I just wanted to come back on that and say
That it isn't just a case of saying we're going to put the taxes up and so therefore you have to pay more. We're working with landlords to try and bring the properties back to a suitable standard and to assure them that they will then generate an income from it. They don't want to just, generally, I can't speak for all of them, but they don't just want to be sat with an empty house, not having an income from it. We are offering them the support to go alongside it. So they go hand in hand quite nicely. So I just wanted to come back on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davies, can you just point me in the right direction there?
I think Emma would like to say something.
Okay.
I just wanted to come back to Councillor Horton and say I can look at the numbers of what our empty homes team do at the moment, and we're actively engaged.
Could you please stand and project your voice because it's not coming over here?
Sorry, I just wanted to say that we're actively working with 287 landlords at the moment, and the empty homes team work in conjunction with Central Suffolk Lettings, where we actively work with landlords to bring those properties on, and we have been really successful at bringing on some of those empty homes. At the moment, we've got back a HMO back into use that was an empty property, helping single people that were formerly homeless. And we work with lots of landlords at the moment. So actually, in terms of what we're trying to do is to get those properties back. And with the work that Central Suffolk Lettings do, which is working with the private landlords to support them. So we are actually converting that into seeing some real gains. We've currently got 85 properties on our books for Central Suffolk Lettings at the moment, and it's continuing to grow every single month. So actually we have had this is the second year now, so we've been working quite closely and we are converting that. So hopefully this policy underpins that and will give us a little bit more leverage to do more of that work.
Thank you. Okay. I'll ask the monitoring officer now if we can move to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. You need to scroll down to the blue line. Thank you. Councillor Beer, may I take your vote, please?
Against. Thank you.
Councillor Riley, may I take your vote, please?
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Busby, may I take your vote, please? Okay, abstain. Thank you, members. That is 20 votes for and 5 votes against, so that's carried, Chair.
BC 23/38, General Fund Budget for 2024-25 and 4-year outlook. Now, if I have this correct, we should be via a hybrid link. We should have joining us Karen Watling, Interim Corporate Manager Finance, Commissioning and Procurement, and Mike Hurst, Assistant Manager Financial Accountant. Am I correct in that? Yes? You've got them. Okay. Right, I refer you to the updated information in the tabled papers. I would like to invite Councillor Ward to introduce the paper BC/23/38 and to move the recommendations in the report. As the papers are long and complex, I have granted an extra 5 minutes for Councillor Ward to introduce the report, and this will also apply to the lead spokesperson for the opposition response, if needed. Okay? So you are being asked to recommend that the Council approves the General Fund proposals compromising 2024-25 revenue budget estimates as set out in Table 1, including... Do you want to do this? Save my voice. Go on. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Don't get croaky.
Now, I know everyone's probably eager to get on to the last item on the agenda, but I would like to say this is really the purpose of this evening's meeting. It's the most important report of the year. It's our budget. So please indulge me. I'm pleased to introduce report BC 2338 for the 2024-25 General Fund Budget and 4-year outlook. In addition to the main report, there is a table paper with updates to 3 key tables in the report. Table 1, the budget summary. Table 2, the budget pressures and savings. And Table 9, the 4-year forecast. When I refer to these, it will be the tabled paper versions. We have to set a balanced budget, and the picture was looking very bleak when the report was considered by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee last month. We have closed the gap for 2024-25, and the budget presented in this report shows a surplus of £132,000. But this doesn't take into account further pressures that must be addressed within the coming year. Moreover, the medium-term picture is challenging. In the past, we have used a worst-case scenario when putting budget proposals together, which has sometimes resulted in underspends, and these have had unintended consequences for the budget-setting process. For the current year, as 2023-24, stretching but realistic assumptions were used when setting the budget last February. However, global events, rising inflation and rising interest rates, coupled with reduced demand for planning services, have seen a marked deterioration in the Council's finances throughout the current year, and at the end of Q3, we are now forecasting a sizable deficit against an original small budgeted surplus of 22,000. A summary of the 2023-24 budget is provided in paragraphs 4.5 to 4.8. The national economic position is summarised in paragraph 4.4. The impacts on us are threefold. Inflationary pressures for items such as energy, fuel and utilities, alongside inflation-linked contractual cost increases, and also the need to agree a fair and affordable payoff for staff. The high interest rates have meant that our financing costs, particularly in obtaining short-term loans, have increased significantly. And no major changes to departmental spending plans have meant that the finance settlement, despite the recently announced increase, is a below inflation increase. Again, this is only a 1-year settlement. The government has been very vocal in saying that councils, and I quote, will see an average or above inflation increase of 7% in their core spending power next year, with a funding guarantee of 4% before taking into account increases in council tax or any other locally generated income. Yes, inflation is now 4.6%, but it has been much higher than 7%, only falling below that in July, and we will be feeling the consequences well into the future. The government continues to say that council tax referendum thresholds are neither minimum amounts nor caps, and that, and I quote again, It is for individual local authorities to determine whether to use the flexibilities detailed, taking into consideration the pressures many households are facing. This is disingenuous because the promised 7% increase in core spending power assumes that we will increase council tax up to the referendum limit, and indeed nearly every council in the country is doing that. The government has also asked authorities to use their reserves to maintain services. Well, we will be doing that as well, and I'll talk about that later, but this is not a long-term strategy. Reserves can only be used once. Moving on to the details of the budget. The budget has taken the 2023-24 forecast last year as a starting point, but with a number of budget items, the employees' budget, grant income from central government, financing costs, interest income, and business rates and council tax income being forecast from a zero base. A lot of work has gone into identifying efficiencies, savings, and income opportunities to balance the budget, but at the moment, more needs to be done to strengthen the short-term financial resilience of the council. The budget summary is provided in the revised Table 1 and also in the charts in paragraph 5.5 in the main report. Just to summarise, gross expenditure is £24.7 million, service income £10.5 million, giving a net cost of service of £14.1 million. Funding totals £14.2 million, leaving the surplus of £132,000 that I've mentioned. This has only been achieved through the planned use of £1.1 million of earmarked reserves. But this is not the whole story regarding reserve usage, and I will return to this later. The net cost of service includes the changes to fees and charges agreed by Cabinet last month. These include those set by government which we can't control, and also those over which we do have control, and for which we have adopted a policy of full cost recovery. Even with the agreed increases, we are still forecasting a small decrease in sales fees and charges income compared with the current year's budget due to the ongoing downturn in planning fee income, only partly mitigated by the recent planning fee increases. Table 2 in paragraph 5.7 shows the 2024-25 budget pressures and savings compared with the current year, with the key assumptions described in paragraphs 5.8 to 5.15. We have been incredibly fortunate with some last-minute large movements. There have been reduced interest payments from two sources. There's a £633,000 credit to the General Fund for the HRA's share of interest on short-term borrowing, which has now been charged directly to the HRA. Paragraph 5.13 explains this in more detail. Another £173,000 will be saved from changes to the capital programme, which I'll talk about later. Just over £200,000 additional CIFCO income is going to be received as a result of the CIFCO board deciding that full debt repayments can now be made from 2024 to 25 onwards. The final finance settlement increase of £103,000, and lastly, almost £600,000 additional business rates income due to reducing the provision for appeals. At this point, I'd like to draw your attention to the regulatory changes we are expecting and how we must account for loan impairments or expected credit losses to third parties. This is described in paragraph 5.16b. Under the new proposals, an MRP charge at least equal to the loss must be charged in the year that the loss is recognised rather than later. Our Treasury management advisors have calculated an ECL figure to measure the credit risk of these loans, and we have been advised to set aside £538,000 for the deferred interest owed by CIFCO for the 2 years that was applied to, and £400,000 for the redevelopment of Courts Lane. Moving on to the funding settlement. The details of the local government funding settlement are provided in paragraphs 517 to 521. The Council's grant allocation, including New Homes Bonus, has increased by £149,000. The final settlement is £103,000 more than the provisional settlement, but this hides the fact that, without it, the provisional settlement was actually a reduction in the core grant allocation due to a significant decrease in the services grant, only reversed by a large increase in New Homes Bonus resulting from our increased housing delivery. We will again be using all of the New Homes Bonus allocation to balance the budget. Core to our funding is the need to have a strong council tax base, and so the numbers produce a compelling case for the need for council tax increases at the referendum threshold of 2.99% for 2024-25 and beyond. This is well below the rate of inflation, but it does mean a rise of £5.46 to £188.10 per annum, or £3.62 per week for a Band E property. And it will provide an additional £325,000 of council tax funding after taking into account revised income bands and contribution rates for the 100% local council tax reduction working age scheme, which is shown in Table 5 in paragraph 530. We are forecasting a total of £5.9 million funding from business rates. Although the baseline rates amount after tariff and levy is almost the same as the current year, and the pooling share and enterprise zone income have decreased, we have some large increases. We won't be top slicing the pool to Suffolk Public Sector Leaders Group. The Section 31 grant has increased due largely to the continuing freeze on the small business multiplier, and the prior year surplus that I've already mentioned as a result of being able to reduce the provision for the impact of successful appeals. Moving on to the additional proposals in the paper this evening. As part of agreeing this budget, we need to also approve the proposals to fund the budget gap and create new reserves that the Cabinet has recommended to Council. These are described in Section 6 of the report, with the detailed tables shown in Appendix A. Table 6, in paragraph 6.3, summarises the remaining pressures on the budget and the proposals for addressing them. One of the proposals, which is included in the budget summary table, is to reprofile some capital projects. A total of £6.8 million worth of capital projects will be postponed to save interest paid. Kidding. Not a chance. I thought I got 10 minutes.
Yeah. You're losing minutes now.
Yeah. Right, well, I've got a lot more to say, so I'll have to stop. Where was I?
How long do you think
You're on
need
table
to
6.
award, because this is important?
It is important. Probably another 3 minutes.
Another 3
Yeah.
minutes?
Sorry about that, but there's a lot here. And it does need to be heard. Thank you. However, the additional pressures of the ECL provision and current year deficit mean that we still need to find another 1.65 million. We're proposing to repurpose £3 million of our earmarked reserves to fund this amount, and also to set up 2 new reserves, an ECL reserve and a financial resilience reserve, to provide short-term funding of future budget gaps. The first table in Appendix A lists the earmarked reserves to be repurposed, and the second table lists the individual capital projects that will be reprofiled. Section 7 of the report addresses our reserves. The latest position for the earmarked reserves is shown in Table 7, in paragraph 7.7. £3.4 million will be taken from reserves for the current year to fund the planned commitments, the budget deficit, and the proposed repurposing. A net £2 million will also be taken in 2024 to 25 for planned commitments and repurposing. The result is at the end of 2024 to 25, the reserves will total £5.8 million, including £1.4 million in the new financial resilience reserve. This reserve is a prudent measure to ensure that we are able to meet any budget shocks or overspending in 2024, 25 and beyond. You'll see that we are forecasting to use 48% of our earmarked reserves over these 2 years, clearly not a sustainable position. The use of reserves can only be done once. The remaining earmarked reserves really must remain committed to funding the purpose for which they were originally established, meaning that we only have £2.4 million of usable reserves available to fund future years' deficits. Looking at the medium-term forecasts of the funding, pressures and savings in income for the next 4 years are provided in Section 8 of the report. Any medium-term forecast would have to be treated with caution due to increased uncertainties on costs and funding. We can at least have some certainty over council tax income, and continuing to increase by 2.99% a year will give us an additional £946,000 over the 4 years, but this is only 41% of the forecast increase in the net cost of service. With the uncertainty over funding, we've had to make assumptions, which may or may not be accurate, but they are reasonable given what we know at this point in time. Based on these, we're likely to be looking at a cumulative budget gap of £6.7 million over the 4 years. The measures we're taking are described in Section 9 of the report. The review, remodel, reinvent approach is well established, but there will be changes. The Chief Executive has already indicated that remodel will be given greater emphasis. The measures will ensure that we will be able to meet any challenges in the coming year and to ensure future year spending is able to be balanced by available resources. The capital programme is summarised in Section 10 and the detail provided in Appendix B. The planned spend at 24 to 25 has been reduced to £9 million as a result of reprofiling the capital programme to postpone the projects listed in Appendix A. And I'd now, lastly, like to highlight some of the principal comments in the Section 25 report, which is provided in Appendix D. These are key to how we approach things going forward. The lack of auditor capacity nationwide means that we still have 3 years of accounts remaining unsigned, and in this we're not alone. It does mean continuing uncertainty as to the exact size of carried forward balances and reserves. This year's budgetary process has been challenging due to time constraints and the lateness of advice on some items. We've had to make significant assumptions for which we have sought expert advice, but these are not guarantees and some of them are outside our control. The rate of general fund reserve usage is unsustainable. The level of reserves is adequate for 24 to 25, but this assessment is dependent on the conditions stated in paragraph 23. The level of reserves is not adequate over the medium term, and as stated in paragraph 24, we are unlikely to be able to set balanced budgets if we don't take action. This will mean hard decisions to reduce expenditure and increased income. The spectre of a Section 114 notice is real. Finally, there are a number of concerns highlighted in paragraph 28 regarding estimates in the budget. To this list, I would add one other. The likely impact on our finances as a result of the recent announcement by Suffolk County Council to withdraw housing-related support. As yet, we have not estimated this. So, I'd like to propose the recommendations in paragraphs 3.1 and 3.2 of the report. And also, secondly, that Council notes that the medium-term forecast and the Section 25 report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Busby, thank you. Councillor Riley, are you considered the opposition spokesperson? No? It's just that if somebody from the opposition wishes to respond to Councillor Ward, I'm obviously mistaken. Councillor Mabry. Right, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairman. The finance report that we have just had does show a lot of doom and gloom. However, there is a lot to be said for the last minute chasing, which I think we've had for the last 3 or 4 years, that suddenly we have more money that comes our way. So I'm delighted that we've actually got £132,000 in the black from this. We do have lots of questions between us, so I'm going to let my colleagues ask their questions, because I think it will be quite clear as to how we feel about the budget. We are concerned, Councillor Ward, that there seems to be a lot of worry and a lot of going backwards and forwards with figures, but the questions will explain a little more. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we now move to questions. Councillor Holt.
Why not? Page 48. In general, with the government changing their financing rules, I'm a bit disappointed members haven't received a briefing, because this is quite important in that how the budget is going to be presented and has been presented, and the future budgets will be presented. I'm not sure if every member here fully understands the implications of what the government are intending. They've been touched on in this budget report. But we're setting aside nearly £1 million due to Suffolk and Babergh. And we need to understand the impact of that going forward, because that just represents this year.
Councillor Holt, is this leading to a question, or are you just going through a diatribe?
I've got a question.
Okay. Well, we are waiting for it.
Oh, just cutting there. This year's forecast loss of baby growth has much bigger implications. Should this project not be put on hold to fully understand the possible implications on the budget in the coming years?
Councillor Ward, you're responding.
Yeah, obviously we're focusing here on the general fund budget, but to veer off into Babergh and the major project that's undertaking, any further postponement would incur huge additional costs and couldn't possibly be justified. The project needs to proceed to completion so that we can get the properties on the market and sold.
Any other questions? Councillor Holt.
that response. You say we're not here to discuss that, and we're not. But the implications of this single project has ramifications throughout the next 3 to 4 years, if not beyond. And it's all very well and good to say you need to get on with it. But everyone in here today and everyone watching will fully appreciate that money is tight, not only for us, but for them. And is it prudent to do that? I would answer the question. We've had many reassurances over the time from Councillor Busby and yourself that this project will deliver a profit, or a minimal profit. But we see £400,000 here forecast for next year. I mean, it does question the level of incompetence that this administration is delivering, with costs falling on taxpayers. Agenda item 8, page 48, states the forecast loss from developing the former council office in Hadley by Babergh Growth is £400,000.
Councillor Holt.
I'm getting there. Is this just for this year? Can we look forward to increased losses regarding the development of Corks Lane? And could you acknowledge it could be in the millions?
As I said, I can't give any comment on the full financial implications of Corks Lane development. All I know is that we cannot stop an ongoing project halfway through and incur increased additional costs for doing so for no good reason. We need to get on and complete this project, get those properties on the market, get them occupied by people.
Councillor Maybury, you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question. Thank you. I'm looking at the environmental implications of this budget on page 66, and I'm a bit confused and would like some clarity. Under 17.3, we're talking about the LC WIP, and the Quiet Lane Suffolk project continues to support parishes across the district. Are we actually putting money into Quiet Lanes then? Just for clarification, thank you.
Not into Quiet Lanes, no.
Any other questions? Ooh, don't all jump at once. I'll take Councillor Register, then Councillor Riley, and then Councillor McLaren.
I'm reminded of Oliver Hardy's famous
Councillor
quote.
Beer.
And this said, there is a question here. Well, here's another fine mess you've gotten me into. The difficulty of Babergh balancing its budget for 2024-25 and even worse projections for the following years is indeed a fine mess. But this is not a mess of Babergh's making, as my colleagues opposite are making out. In fact, the main problem here is 14 years of incompetent Conservative and coalition central government, alongside austerity
Councillor Maybury, please be seated.
imposed upon local authorities. The needs of any local authority are meant to be ascertained by a review of their needs. This was dumped in 2013, and now the funding for local authorities is an almost arbitrary calculation, not related to the needs of any particular authority. First promised...
Councillor Register, are you leading to a question, please?
Yes.
Okay.
First promised in 2016, the Fair Funding Review is envisaged to create a fairer formula for the allocation of government funding, but it has been repeatedly delayed, as has a related reset of business rates retention to redistribute growth. What does this mean? Well, it means that...
I have to ask you to get to a question.
Okay, so my question is, how can we make central government get us out of this fine mess?
Councillor Ward, I don't know this is a question we can answer, but here we go.
Well, it's not really a question I can answer, but I sympathise with your sentiment. All councils, whatever their political persuasion, are up against the wall. They're all complaining, and this is not an issue that actually divides any of us, whether we're a Conservative council, a Labour council, a coalition council, Green council even. The problems that we're facing are national problems caused by the fact that there simply isn't enough money in the system for local government. DLUC is not a ring-fenced department. It is having to take its cuts along with other unring-fenced departments. Yet at the same time, government won't give us the level of autonomy that we need to make our own decisions, to balance our own budgets, to suit our own particular local needs. It is a problem we're all facing. We're lobbying through the DCN, through the LGA, to very little effect, to be quite honest. DLUC ministers and officials do seem to be very unsympathetic to the plight of local government, unfortunately. They need to value us. They need to give us more autonomy, more responsibility. Local government has proven that it is an effective and efficient deliverer of services. The pandemic taught us that, with all of the work that we were suddenly asked to do by government and which we did very effectively, very quickly. I can't say any more than that, Councillor Register. It's a difficult and it's an ongoing problem. If only we had a long-term settlement rather than a year-on-year settlement.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Now I have Councillor McLaren with a question. Your hand did go up.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question is very basic, not very high-powered. But in Appendix D on page 74, we have the view of our current Section 151 officer in key financial risks. And my question on the first part, which is about the vacancy management factor, what I would like to know is, have we got a succession planning programme in place for corporate managers and team managers to enable us to recruit internally as well as recruit externally with success? Thank you.
The Chief Executive will respond.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, happy to confirm that we do. We have an Aspiring Managers programme. As it happens, I'm attending the session tomorrow, which is the end of the first cohort, to celebrate the success in terms of their work. Time will tell as to whether or not we have that steady progression through the organisation of internal appointments, because of course, as people are ready, there aren't necessarily the vacancies for them to go to, so we may still find staff leaving us, but yes, we've put in place more robust succession planning to help address that.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Riley, you had your hand up for a question, and then Councillor Beer had his hand.
I have two short questions. First question, page 43, a beautiful pie chart. The senior leadership team expenses have gone up from 0.76 million to 0.85 million. Why? Why are we taking on more people? Why aren't we sweating the staff we've got? That's what the senior leadership team is for. Taking decisions, taking action, giving direction. Why have we got this obscene increase?
Councillor Riley, we're not taking on more people. That increase, and I'm sure the Chief Executive will confirm that, is based on the review of the senior leadership team salaries that was approved a year ago. You will also know that the Chief Executive has sent out an email to everyone that there are proposed reductions in the senior leadership team that will provide us with savings. But Chief Executive, if there's anything further you wish to add to that?
Yes, please.
That's the answer.
Nothing to add? No. We all did get an email highlighting the issues.
Fair enough. It's what we've got existing staff, some reduction, some increase in salaries. Doesn't make sense at the present time. My second point I want to make here is I want to run straight to page 77, where the robustness of our estimates does not have the confidence of the interim corporate manager, finance 151 officer. On the capital expenditure for the shared depot, on the assumptions made for interest costs and the medium-term growth forecast. We should not be looking to approve papers that are full of caveats. You know, this good lady has concerns.
Councillor Riley, you're making a statement, not asking a question.
Right. When will the 151 officer be happy with these estimates that we can accept? Otherwise, we can't accept the document that's given to us.
Certainly in terms of capital project expenditure, that always gets revised as time progresses and the project gets closer to being taken forward. At some point in the future, we will be revising these and we'll be getting more accurate updates, but future forecasts are always estimates. Estimates always get revised.
Thank you. Councillor Beer had his hand up for a question.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, just in answer first to Councillor Register, we'll all have the opportunity by the end of this year to influence somebody. True. My question, and I will get to the question, Madam Chairman.
Yes, that we are in question time at the moment.
Yes, I know we are. I've just lost what. Oh, here we are. Right. In 2023, it's to do with staff costs. Staff costs in millions was 11,613,000. Well, that's like that. 11,613,000, which was a percentage of income 50.90%. So call it 51%. 24-25, and I assume this is an estimated or guesstimation figure, £12,369,000. This continues to go up, and yet you just said that you're saving money, cutting staff, but you're still going to increase council tax. How much of the income is the wages costing us? It's well over 50% now. I'd like to know the exact figure because we cannot afford the staff at these figures. Thank you very much.
The forecast for the current year is actually 50% of our total budget. You're right, last year was 51%, and I've looked back over the past few years, and it does oscillate between the 45 and 50% band. To be honest, I'm not sure what you expect in terms of percentage of our income on staff costs. We are a people organisation. We're not a manufacturing company. We don't have vast factories or requirement for lots of raw materials. What we do is based on the people we have. So the fact that only 50% of our costs are employee costs, I think is very good value.
Any other questions? Councillor Holt, then Councillor Parker, then Councillor Jameson. Yes, questions. You know that thing that's quite brief.
I'll get on to Sifco. £538,000 we're allowing this year. Do you forecast Sifco will be able to repay, as they have done this year, for the forthcoming years? Because again, if not, it puts extra budget pressure. So could you guarantee, or can you confirm, that you will hopefully say yes?
I think, as I said in my leader's announcements when I answered your questions about the Sifco deferred payments, the Sifco board has confirmed that it will be making full repayments for 2024-25 and going forward as well.
Councillor Parker.
Which one am I on? Oh, I'm on this one. I'll come across. Thank you, Chair. Actually, can I ask a couple of questions? Or am I limited to one?
As long as they're questions.
Yep.
You can ask as many questions.
Thank you very much. Actually, I will, if I could just follow on actually from Councillor Holt's very point there about Sifco, I'd just be interested to know, just in the interests of just an interesting question really, but what is the split? Do we know the split of long-term and short-term borrowing on Sifco? And is there any opportunity for us to rearrange that lending now? That's one question. With regards to page 68, earmarked reserves, I've just got a question there around the business rate retention plan. The Delphi site, what's our involvement with the Delphi site? particularly. We don't own that, do we? And then page 69 on the capital budget option. The roadside workspace development, I confess, I don't actually know what that is, but there's £100,000 of planning fees allocated in there, and it's saying that we're not going to now start that for a further 12 months. But what is that actually? Thank you.
Taken in reverse order, that's the Hadley development along the A1071.
And are we still going ahead with that?
We're postponing. Sorry, what was your second one? I was going in reverse order.
Members, can you hear Councillor Ward?
Sorry, I'll lean over. The SIFCO long-term, short-term, I don't have the precise ratio of those two. I'll have to get that for you and get back to you on that. But there is a mix, yeah. And the other point?
Can it effectively be remortgaged?
That would depend. We can't do any further long-term borrowing through PWLB, as you'll appreciate. So it's only a matter of profiling the short-term borrowing. So that's all that will be open to us. And Delphi. We don't have a lot of information about Delphi, unfortunately. We don't have a detailed ongoing engagement with the owner of the property. We'll have to wait to see what plans they have for bringing that forward. It is a major site. Seeing it in its current state is very depressing because it has so much potential for Sudbury. But I can't answer for the owners of Delphi, unfortunately.
Thank you. Councillor Beer.
Point of clarification, if I may. Councillor Ward, I didn't hear the response to the first part of the question. You said that you would postpone them. Was that council tax or something you was referring to?
No, the Hadley roadside development scheme.
Thought it was something.
Councillor Rees, did you put your hand up? Yes, and then Councillor Holt, and then Councillor Jameson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I understand that Bellevue, the house was sold for 287,000 and is now on the market for 1.1 million. Was there any overage clause in the included with the first sale?
Not that I'm aware of, but I doubt very much it will get £1.1 million, quite honestly. It's worth nowhere near that. It's going to cost a huge amount of money to redevelop into two dwellings, and if it does get sold, then it will have to go for a realistic price of around the same level as at the price at which we sold it. And if the current developer decides not to sell it, then he will develop it himself in accordance with the planning permission that he's already obtained.
Thank you, Councillor Ward, for accommodating that, because it's not an item on the agenda, but there we go. Councillor Holt?
Yeah, thank you. Looking at page 74, key financial risks, 24-25 budget, in my view, are as follows. I'm reading the paper, not mine. Employees' budget is one of them, which Councillor Beer has touched on. I don't think we can keep increasing the costs without having more income. If we can't generate more income, we can't afford what we're paying. We do seriously need to look at that because it's too high. But I was going to get to page 77. This is to item 28. And this is, I think, written by Karen, who has concerns with the following estimates. And this relates to the proposed depot project. So we're looking at borrowing another £6 million to go into bed with Mid-Suffolk yet again on a project that really I think you should be looking at and putting on hold. It is not the time to borrow £6 million of public money to put into a new depot. We have a serviceable depot in Sudbury. If Mid-Suffolk are selling theirs, so be it. Why should they put pressure on us to spend £6 million of our residents' money on a project that could be held back until the current economic climate is improved, where loans and borrowing could be at a cheaper rate? There is no driven desire, I don't think, that we need to progress with this project. Government still haven't released the new RAWS elements.
Can you ask your question, please?
I did, which was, can we put it on hold?
Right,
because
so
the current
that's
climate,
the end of the question. We can move on now. We can have a response.
me, I like to, chat.
On the contrary, The requirement for a new depot is very pressing now. The two depots that we have in Stowmarket and Sudbury are not adequate. They're not big enough. When we do move to a new depot, they can be sold and we'll get the income from those. The two councils will. But you mentioned Raws. Raws is moving ahead quite quickly now. We're going to need a requirement for extra space, for extra vehicles, extra processing facilities. The current depots will not cater for Raws, and we have to be up and ready for it for when it's implemented. So there is a very pressing need now for a new depot.
Councillor Jameson.
Thank you. You'd forgotten me. On page 73.10, it says that the planning process for this year's budget was delayed for a number of reasons, including late overall start to the process, lack of capacity within the finance team, and late advice on certain budgetary items. I just wondered if Councillor Ward could assure us that this is not going to be repeated this year and that work will start straight away on next year's budget, considering the situation we're in.
Absolutely, Councillor Jameson. We will be starting to look at next year's budget as soon as we've approved this one. And there's a lot that needs to be done, and we know that. We know that not just in terms of analysing the budget for the pressures that we're going to expect, but also work that the Chief Executive wants to undertake to change the way we do things, to make sure that the Council is fit for the future. But yes, it'll start soon.
Thank you. Councillor Clover.
Thank you, Chair. Planning fee income is down by about 300,000 in the budget. Why do you think that is?
Because the major developers are not putting in planning applications in the numbers that they were up until about a year or so ago. Quite simply, there are fewer planning applications coming through, and it is on the majors rather than the smaller applications.
I'll go to Councillor Clubber, because Councillor Holt, you've had the floor for some time, but I will come back to you.
So it's nothing to do with the attractiveness of getting planning applications through with Babergh Council, you don't think?
We're veering off the budget onto planning, but absolutely not. We have a brand new local plan which has some very good policies, which I think everyone recognises are policies fit for the future. Developers that don't have any problems with those policies, they're dictated by the market, quite simply. They submit applications when they think that they can develop property.
Sell them.
And sell them, yes. I can't speak for developers, and it's purely down to them. We can't force them to submit planning applications. But we would like them to, because clearly we don't want to see our housing delivery decline over the next few years. We want to maintain the delivery rates that we've currently had and currently enjoyed over the past 2 or 3 years, because we know there's a huge demand for housing within the district.
Councillor Holt.
Councillor Ward, you seem very stubborn to the fact you just want to borrow. 9 million on Babergh Growth, 6 million on a new depot. Again, 15 million. Is it really the time for our residents to hear that we, as a local authority, are being prudent with our finances, and yet you still want to borrow £15 million and put it on our budget sheet year in, year out for the next God knows how many years? Is that prudent?
I've already answered about the depot, the fact that the need for that is pressing. Yes, we have to borrow for that, but there are things we have to do. So I make no excuses for that.
Councillor Busby.
The £9 million that you're talking about for headquarters won't be for years and years and years. Hopefully it will only be until perhaps 2025, when we'll have sold all the properties and got our money back.
I don't know. I think it was a hiccup. Any other questions, or can we move to debate, please? And who would like to open the debate? Don't all rush at once. Councillor Register.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify something Councillor Rees mentioned, which is Bellevue House. Whilst it was marketed at 1.1 million, we are told, I'm told locally, that the smaller house may have been sold to a buyer, and the larger house has been separately marketed at 700,000, and that these prices are
Are you
including...
talking about Bellevue?
Yeah. So I wanted to clarify because
it's not actually an item on the agenda.
Yeah, I know, but it was raised as an issue. But the other thing on developers.
But it's not an item on the agenda. The issue facing you now is to approve paper 2338 or not prove it and enter into debate why it should or shouldn't.
Fine.
Sorry, Councillor Beer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, as we've heard, all these increases, council tax increase, borrowing £15 million, all going to fall on the hard-pressed taxpayer of Babergh. And as usual, it just goes through because you've got the majority here at the moment and you're hell-bent on making life more difficult for the people we serve. We know very well that lots of people are struggling. They're struggling with their heating bills, they're struggling with food, they're struggling with fuel. And here we are putting on a council tax, which we don't need, and we certainly wouldn't need it if we don't borrow all this extra money, £15 million that you want to borrow. So why do it? It just seems that it's always the easy way out. If we haven't got enough money, slap it on the council tax. I mean, you all know that the small amount that was been told it is, £5 or £6, doesn't end there. You add on the county council's increase, you add on the police precept increase, you add on the parishes and the towns increase, and then Babergh's. And it comes to about 3 times the amount that you're on, if not 4. And really, you want to look at your consciences. We don't need to raise this money at the moment. There's some simple answers. We don't need to borrow this 15 million. We're told that the staff is cut and the amount of revenue it's costing us has gone down. So why are we increasing? Why do we need to put the council tax up? People won't forgive us for it. And all right, I may not be here next time, but some of you will be, and you'll be carrying the can then, I can assure you. Thank you. I'm going to be opposing it.
Councillor McCraw.
Thank you, Chair. I was sort of expecting somebody to ask about value for money. I've been doing a bit of number crunching recently, looking at something that's been talked about across the country, the overall national tax burden, highest it's been since the 1950s. And overall, the tax burden in the last year, I can find figures for 2022 to 23. The government total all taxation in the UK was £1 trillion. That's 1,000 billion and a bit. And I've been looking through the various slices. Income tax, national insurance, by far the biggest, that's about 40%, 428 billion. VAT, 162 billion. And I went all the way through the taxes, even things like duties. Not going to go through all the detail. It's in my report, you can probably see in the recent media coverage in our emails. So if anybody wants to look at that. It's a breakdown, and I'm looking at how much a week. The average wage, you'd pay about £105 a week in national insurance and income tax. Your VAT, you'd be very lucky to get away with £30, £40 a week, based on all the percentages of the things you, services and goods you buy. I'll come to council tax. The total of council tax across the entire national tax base is 4%. Now, before we start pointing fingers about raising prices and raising things, let's just remember we are responsible for 9% of maybe a 4% figure. It's actually not exactly that, because our council tax in Suffolk might be a little bit lower than some places, or it might be a little bit higher. But broadly speaking, somebody is responsible for 96% of the national tax burden. I think that might be a point to look at. And if I'm looking at local tax burdens, the increase proposed by Babergh is 14 times higher at Suffolk County Council. Now, I appreciate the difficulties of Suffolk County Council because, as Councillor Ward has suggested, all local government is in the same boat. Funding for local government since 2010 has been the largest area of the government department to receive cuts. It's been the biggest cut we've received of all the government departments. We work out for £3.60 a week. It was £3.50 last year. It's going to go up by 10p a week. We provide for that £3.50 a week, I count 35 distinct services in 7 main areas. And because we're a people business, that is why these are the people who provide those services. Because a lot of those services aren't just financial. They are actually about advice, about help, and carrying out the jobs.
You've got 50 seconds left.
And that's all I'm going to need. I will be voting for the budget. I argue £3.60 now a week is a heck of a lot better than, well, last year's figure for Suffolk County Council was £28.78.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to join the debate? Or can we go to a vote? Councillor Holt?
Right, thank you.
Have you spoken
Not in
on
debate.
the debate? No?
No, I've kept my powder dry for this one.
Oh, right. Right.
To sum up, I think our taxpayers will end up covering the debt that we carry forward from these projects, like Corks Lane, like the depot, and like the increased staffing costs that face this council. We're being dragged into this by poor decisions, by the administration, this and previous, and also by our neighbours, Mid-Suffolk, who we seem to be hamstrung to, at their beck and call, to do what they wish. The depot should be withdrawn. We should not put ourselves under that burden. We should be able to make our own choices as a separate authority, which we are, and not just follow the lead that they're taking. We need strong people making strong decisions in the future, and I don't believe we've got that at the moment. So I hope and pray that in the future there'll be a cabinet with strong convictions that will follow the sensible route and not go down this loan, borrow, because it's not going to work. It's going to cost us more and more money, and our residents will be poorer for it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rees?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd just like to take issue with Councillor McCraw's rather unpleasant jab at Suffolk County Council when you think, as far as comparing what we're going to be increasing our costs, our taxes to, the Suffolk County Council has a statutory obligation to look after the most vulnerable members of our society, and to use that in your argument for defending our council tax increases, I think is really rather unpleasant. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Jameson?
Just a couple of things. Firstly, Councillor Holt suggests that being hamstrung to Mid-Suffolk is causing us a lot of problems. I mean, it may be that a merger with Mid-Suffolk in the end will save us problems. It's unlikely Mid-Suffolk would be willing to take us in the current situation, but they've got more money than we have. I'd also like to know why Councillor Beer is never as vocal about the council tax increases that Suffolk County Council put onto the residents as he is when he comes into this chamber. He always seems to be anonymous when it comes to Suffolk County budgets. As Councillor McCraw alluded to a minute ago, the main problem that we are suffering is through lack of government funding. This government that has dragged the country back into recession has been cutting council funding for the last 14 years since they came into government. I think the funding from central government is down by nearly 60% since 2010. And I mean, our council expected you see the problems up and down the country. How are councils expected to provide services when their funding is continually being cut? I mean, and we've also heard a lot about Courts Lane mentioned tonight. But wasn't it a Conservative-led council that decided to sell Courts Lane in the first place? I mean, there were members in this council now that were there and agreed that. So a lot of these problems are historic. Change of government looks likely this year. I don't think it will make much difference to us anytime soon. I mean, I'm going to support the budget.
You've got 1 minute left.
I'm going to support the budget, but like many members in this chamber, there'll probably be a lot of sleepless nights ahead of us before next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who hasn't spoken in the debate wishing to speak in the debate, or can we go to a vote?
Councillor Ward wants to sum up. Councillor Ward wants to sum up.
Councillor who?
Ward wants to sum up.
Oh, yeah. Councillor Ward, will you sum up?
I will sum up. Thank you, Madam Chairman. This borrowing, to clarify, we are not borrowing £15 million on those two things. £6 million, yes, on the depot, and £9 million is the headroom that we've allowed for Courts Lane to see us through the development while it's going through the development before the properties are sold. Councillor Holt mentions previous administrations when regarding the issue over Courts Lane. As Councillor Jameson has explained, it wasn't just one administration, it was a number, including, as he said, a Conservative administration, which did vote to move out of Courts Lane in 2016. There are a number of members still in this chamber who voted for that. It's a recorded vote. The names are there on the website. Councillor Holt, Councillor Newman, Councillor Beer and Councillor Maybury all voted, and me, yes, because it was a great move and we've benefited hugely from it. So let's not get sidetracked by Courts Lane, for goodness sake. So nearly all councils, Conservatives as well as others, are increasing council tax by 2.99%. Councillor Beer, less than inflation. I will remind you that council tax is, in this budget, the council tax income is only about 20% of our total budget. 28%. 28%. All the rest we have to find from elsewhere, whether it's government funding, business rates, or income that we can generate ourselves, or interest on our investments, our crucial and critical investments. So therefore it's good value. And you've got to remember the poorest in society get 100% reduction. Some of those are workers. So, but you never vote in favour. So how are we ever going to deliver things if council tax can never, ever rise? And would you go and say that to all the Conservative councils around the country that are increasing council tax by 2.99%, or in the case of counties, by 4.99%? Anyway, just to summarise, as I've said, our challenges are not unique, and it will take a long time for us to get a long-term financial settlement. A lot of work has gone into balancing the budget in the short term, but this has required repurposing and spending reserves. Going forward, we do need to find ways of replenishing the reserves as well as balancing the budget each year. There still remains the problem of the medium-term forecast. The uncertainty over government support means that effective planning for the future is not easy. But work will start in the spring, as I've confirmed to Councillor Jameson, to continue to make efficiencies and productivity savings and find new ways of working. I am confident that we recognise the situation and we will be able to take the necessary, difficult decisions to reduce expenditure and increase income, as alluded to in the Section 25 report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Now then, in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 19.3, immediately after any vote is taken at a budget decision meeting of the Council, the names of the councillors who cast a vote for the decision or against the decision, or who abstained from voting, shall be recorded in the minutes of that meeting. I'm now going to ask the Assistant Manager Governance to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Councillor Beer, may I take your vote, please?
Yes, against.
Against.
Thank you.
Councillor Riley, may I take your vote?
Against.
Thank you. Thank you, members. That is 23 votes for, 6 votes against, and 1 abstention. So that's carried, Chair.
Thank you, councillors. I'm aware that we've had a bit of a session, and I'm thinking that we should take a 10-minute natural break. So can we please be back in the chamber by 7:20? Okay. Paper BC/23/39, Housing Revenue Account, commonly referred to as the HRA, 24-25 budget. I'd like to invite Councillor Ward to introduce this paper and to move the recommendations in the report. Councillor Ward.
Just wait for Councillor Saw to sit down and then I'll get up. Thank you. Excellent. Right. Okay. This isn't going to take us long. I'm pleased to introduce report BC 2339 for the 2024-25 Housing Revenue Account, Revenue and Capital Budgets. As with the General Fund, the situation with the HRA is challenging. The same inflationary pressures are having a huge impact, and we are suffering the after effects of the rent policy of 2015 to 2020 and last year's rent cap. We are undertaking a full review of our HRA 30-year business plan so that it still meets the Council's aspirations, our tenants' aspirations, and the need to invest in our aging stock for repairs and energy efficiency improvements, while also ensuring that we adhere to the social housing regulations and the requirements of the social housing regulator. Our budget for 2023 to 24, the current year, did forecast a deficit of £602,000. For 24 to 25, we are forecasting that income will increase by more than the net cost of service. However, due to a review of the best use of reserves, we are proposing to make a £6 million loan repayment and a £4.5 million increase in the revenue contribution to capital. These two one-off measures result in the position for next year appearing to have worsened by £9.535 million to £10.136 million. Table 1 shows the pressures and savings and additional income, and Table 2 contains the overall budget summary. The increase in total dwelling rent income is based on an increase of 7.7%, which is CPI plus 1, on general needs properties, and an increase of 9.4%, which is RPI plus 0.5 for affordable housing. The average weekly social rent will increase by £7.92 from £102.88 to £110.81. The average weekly rent for affordable housing will increase by £11.13 from £144.51 to £155.63. Table 3 shows how alternative scenarios for rent increases would have impacted the total rent income for next year, and Table 4 shows the cumulative effect of these scenarios on the HRA business plan over 30 years. Paragraphs 5.16 to 5.31 explain the movements in the individual line items in Table 2. Of particular note is the increased budget for building services, which does include transfer costs for the pay review and transformation costs from housing management. Increases to the sheltered housing service and utility charges will add an average of £18.02 per week to bills, which is a 37% rise. This will, however, enable us to recover expected costs and reduce the risk of the rent payers subsidising the sheltered housing schemes. And garage rents will also be an increase in line with RPI. The reserves are shown in Table 5, and after the reduction for the budget deficit, the reserves will total £6.5 million, which includes the £1 million working balance general reserve. The HRA capital programme is, for the next 4 years is shown in Table 6. The total proposed capital spend for 24 to 25 is £13.7 million, which is substantially greater than the £8 million forecast in last year's budget. Both housing maintenance and the new build and acquisitions programme have increased spending proposed. The latter will deliver an additional 14 new homes to our stock. This is less than we have been able to do in recent years, but we are looking for further opportunities. Housing maintenance is now shown in detail in the table so that the provision for each type of work can be seen. The additional revenue contribution to capital that we are drawing from our strategic reserve will help with the affordability of the capital programme by reducing the cost of short-term borrowing. In summary, there are challenges with the HRA: inflation, regulatory compliance, the condition of our stock and the cost of repairs and maintenance, the difficulty in building and acquiring new homes, restrictions on the use of right-to-buy receipts, not to mention the government's tinkering with rent policy. However, we are coping, and the building services transformation programme is nearly complete. We're about to complete a comprehensive stock survey and a new business plan, so we will know what we have to do and how and when it will be done. As the report says, the journey to excellence will take several years to complete, but we are now seeing progress being made. So I'd like to propose the recommendations in paragraph 4.1, which summarise the key budget proposals, and ask for a second. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ward. Could I please have a seconder? Councillor Saw. We'll now move to questions. Now, councillors may ask as many questions as they wish. However, they must be relevant to the subject under discussion and must be a question. Can I have a question? Councillor Maybury and then... yes, and then Councillor Henry. Councillor McLaren.
Shall I carry on,
Yes.
Chairman? Thank
Carry
you very
on,
much.
you're
Thank
first
you.
in the queue.
It would be good to have some clarification. I actually wrote by email asking for a couple of answers to queries that I had on this paper. And I did send them to Karen Watling, but I haven't had a reply. So whether or not she's not the right person to ask them to, I don't know. My first is, under recommendations G, a bit confused about this, that the 6 million PWLB loan due to be repaid in 24-25 repaid rather than refinancing at a higher interest rate. What does that mean? That's the first question, because it doesn't make sense.
It means that the loan was due and due to be repaid, that the loan term was up, and rather than taking out a new loan, we've decided that we would repay that because the new loan would incur additional interest costs.
A question?
There will be a question. Thank you. So this repaid and repaid is just really an error in the writing, is it?
Yeah, I guess it could have been written more clearly, but I've explained what we're doing. We're repaying a loan rather than refinancing.
Councillor Henry.
While I appreciate that even with the proposed increase, council house rents are still considerably lower than private rents, this doesn't sit comfortably with me. Many of our properties are in a poor state of repair, with some not meeting decent home standard. Some properties have not had an inspection for over 20 years. Could the Cabinet Member for Housing please reassure the Council that an increase in rent will also come with a firm commitment to ensure that these essential repairs are undertaken?
Thank you. Councillor Carter, do you wish to respond?
Yes,
Thank you.
I do. Thank you for your question. I echo your concerns, and I completely understand that it seems unreasonable to be raising rents when the stock of our houses isn't great at the moment. Unfortunately, that is due to years of lack of investment by administrations going back. We have just released the funds to be able to fix and sort out the repairs, and that is underway, and that will be happening as soon as it can, but it is one of our highest priorities. The stock condition surveys, the timeline for that is now quicker than expected, so we should know what we're dealing with much quicker than we thought, and then we'll know how much work there is actually to be done. The time now for government for intervention and investment would be much welcome, but unfortunately it doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime soon. So we are stuck with what we've got. We're stuck with the money that we have, and we are working towards it. And just to reiterate that when I came into this, I had discussions with officers, with fellow cabinet members, and we are making it our highest priority to ensure that the condition of our houses is brought up to scratch.
Thank you. Councillor McLaren, then Councillor Maybury.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If we look at page 85, we get an idea of the increase for sheltered housing schemes, but really I'm just using that as an example. They're quite a large increase for people in sheltered housing schemes and for rents. Now, for those on benefits, I understand will go up accordingly, but my concern is for those residents who fall outside any benefit safety net, and we put a lot of those in our wards. And I would like to know, as a council and the housing directorate, what advice and support will be given to all those residents who cannot have any benefits increase because they're not in receipt of benefits. Thank you.
Councillor Maybury?
Respond to the question first.
Chairman, thank you for elevating me to higher places. But I can't answer that.
Oh, sorry.
Deborah Fenton's online if she wants to answer.
Ah, right, okay.
So you need to call her in.
Well, how do I do that?
Just saying Deborah Fenton.
Deborah Fenton, can you assist?
Yes, I certainly can. So we have two financial inclusion officers that work in our housing solution team, and they support not only tenants but also residents. So they will be able to support the residents of, our tenants in sheltered housing who are having financial difficulty. We also have scheme managers who are on site to be able to support individuals. So what we'll be doing is we'll be working with those tenants to make sure they are maximising any benefits that they're not currently applying for, and also the officers can help with budgeting if that's required.
Okay.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you.
Does that help? Who was it? Ruth that was asking. Does that help you, Councillor Henry?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor McLaren? Yes, sorry.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Now, Councillor McLaren put her hand up for a question, so I'll come to you, Councillor Holt, after she's asked her question. Yes? Maybury, sorry.
Thank you. I know I quite like the colour red, so well done, Councillor McLaren, but that was me. I have three questions, but I'll just ask one at a time, so everybody else gets to go. On page 92, 11.5, we are told that we are preparing a programme of energy refits to the poorest performing properties with a rating of E and below. Does anyone know how many we have, please?
The answer is I do, but it'll take me a few minutes to get the information.
I shall look forward to the answer.
Can we ask Ms Fenton if she has that information to hand?
So under the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund, we are planning on retrofitting 100 properties in each council. We also have an additional scheme to install insulation in any properties which are not covered under that scheme. But I think off the top of my head, and I would have to check the numbers, we've got about 170 in Babergh.
Okay. Yes? You asked the question.
Yes, thank you very much. Page 85, and this is for clarification, 5.22 other income. A 5% allowed for increase on leasehold service charges. Perhaps somebody can answer this. Deborah might be the right person. I thought the government were removing leaseholds en bloc. Thank you.
Ms Fenton, can you respond, please?
Sorry, could you repeat that question, please?
Yes, 5.22 on page 85. There's other income, a 5% allowed for increase on leasehold service charges, but I understood that the government were removing leaseholds en bloc.
No, that's not the case. So leasehold service charges are for charges which are incurred by the leaseholders. So it could be in a block of flats, for example, communal electricity, or it could be a cleaning service, or it could be other works that have been provided, like a renewal of roofing. If what I can do is I can speak to my colleagues and be a little bit more specific about that in the minutes if it would be helpful.
Okay.
Yes, it would. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Beer, you wish to ask a question?
Yes, Madam Chairman. Could I ask the portfolio holder for housing, how quick is it for a member of the public in one of our council houses to get repair works done from the time that they make contact to the time when the job is finished? Because you say there's a priority, that you're doing as much as we can, and I know the previous person in your job did quite an excellent job, come to that. But we're still not getting anywhere. At the end of the day, the tenant reports the problem, they contact the council, then we get inspectors, I believe, and then you get somebody turn up, and then backwards and forwards. It takes months, possibly years. And garages, I mean, that's never ending. So is there a time frame that if a member of our council house tenants contact you, how long you would expect that problem to get sorted? Assuming it's not like the roof falling in. But dampeners and the leaking garage roofs and doors that won't close and windows that won't shut, they should be quite simple and straightforward, but they're not, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Carter, do you wish to respond, or do you wish to get Ms. Fenton to?
Yeah. I'll admit it's been a bit of a state to be able to get people to come out. There's been a number of things gone on. We've had a changeover in contractors, and the fact that we are now aware of how long it is taking, it is, as I was saying about our repairs, it is now our priority to be able to get those things done, and they should be happening very, very quickly. And if they're not, I would strongly urge you to put someone, you can send them over to me, or you can direct them over to somebody else, because repairs should be happening. You talk about a roof falling in, and that can be patched immediately. Things like damp and mould are a huge concern for us, and it should only be no longer than a fortnight for you to be able to call up or report online, get the phone call, for them to come out, for them to treat it, they'll then leave you with information. If things are dragging on, you have to let us know, because somewhere something has gone wrong. But things should be happening quickly. We are now completely aware of the shortfallings that we have had before, and we are working to ensure that doesn't happen anymore. So please do let us know if you know someone who has been waiting an awful amount of time.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. A fortnight is excellent to know that they'll be done.
Good. Any more questions, or can we move to debate? Councillor Holt and then Councillor Maybury.
Thank you. I think everyone would agree the money on here is impressive, in that we are putting a hell of a lot of finance into the housing stock. Neighbourhood improvements, I see 2.4 million forecast for this year. Last year it was £500,000. I'd like to know what that 1.5 or nearly 2 million actually is going to be spent on. What are neighbourhood improvements? We're going to spend a lot on kitchens, bathrooms, windows, but the other thing that strikes me on here is the roofing. For 25-26, 4 million, repeated the following year, 26-27, repeated the following year, 27-28. What is that roofing? Is that going to be energy saving? Is it going to be PV? What type of roofing are we planning to put on the properties? Those numbers jump out at you, and as I say, they're quite impressive when you add them all up. It's a huge investment compared to previous years. So if you could answer those questions, I'd appreciate it. And the other thing I'd like to know is how many of our properties have storage heaters? Electric heating is not that efficient. It can cause condensation. And I'm sure residents who have that are paying a higher price for energy than those who are on gas. The one thing that strikes me coming out of this is the money is shown to be there, but do we have the people to deliver it? or are we going to be subletting this to hit the targets that you're aiming for? Because again, that will increase costs.
Is that your question?
It is. Well, there's many questions in there. Neighbourhood improvements, what are they? The roofing, what type of roofing? And also the storage heaters. And fourth question, I suppose, is have we got the people to deliver it on time?
Okay, thank you very much. Deborah Fenton to respond. I think we'll ask Ms Fenton to respond there because it's quite detailed information.
Thank you. So neighbourhood improvements includes the painting and the painting of the external areas of the blocks of flats. So that's what we mean by neighbourhood improvements in that context. In terms of the roofing, all roofing, like kitchens and bathrooms, has a lifespan. And the way we plan for works is we have a 30-year plan, and we plan our works within that 30 years, depending on how old the components are. Now, when we've looked at our current plan and our current roofs, we've got many roofs that need completing in the first sort of 5 years of the plan, and that's why there are such huge numbers in terms of the roof replacements, and they are full replacements. They don't necessarily include any solar. They're just a sort of a like-for-like replacement roof. In terms of having the staff to do it, our high-risk works, such as roofing and scaffolding, is always contracted out because it's deemed too high risk to perform that level of work in-house, because you do need specialist contractors to do that. I'm not sure if that's answered all your questions or I've missed any.
Just asked about storage heaters.
Thank you. Storage heaters, I will have to find out, and I'll put it in the minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. This one is on facts and figures. Under recommendations, page 80H, it says the revenue contribution to capital is increased 4.48 million to 5.572 million. But then on page 86, 5.31, it says that the revenue contribution to capital has been increased by, well, I don't really know what this is. I think it's 4 million, but I don't know if that's right or not. It's a bit confusing because it says 4,480k. So is that 4 million or not? And that doesn't actually fit with the figure in the recommendations. Not to my thinking anyway.
Those two numbers are the same. There's 4.48 million. One is written as 4,480 thousands, but 1,000 is a million.
If I can come back, I think looking through the budget papers this year, there is a lot of transferring from one thing to another. So perhaps next year we could have a bit of consistency where it's supposed to be millions, it's millions all the way through, or if it's going to be hundreds of thousands all the way through. And also where we have weeks and months and annuals for the increases in some of the detail that we've had, that would also be helpful if it was consistent all the way through, because we may be able to understand it, however the public may not, and this is a public document. Thank you.
Do you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Councillor Maybury, every year we, in the budget tables, whether it's General Fund or XRA, the table column headers clearly indicate that we're talking about thousands of pounds, and it always talks about 2,000 or whatever, or 3,000, whatever, but it's always thousands of pounds, so the implication is it's millions. Sometimes in the text, we translate that into millions for ease of reading, but there's always consistency in the papers.
Thank you. Councillor Holt.
I see on the new build programme, last year in the budget book it says 800,000. This year in the capital programme it looks as though we spent over 2 million. And going forward, 3.5, 2.7, are we optimistic and hopeful that we will spend that money to acquire new housing stock?
Councillor Ward. Miss Fenton, are you still there?
I am, yes.
Sales.
I am confident that we will spend that sum of money, and it's that will be part of it's for our council house building programme, not necessarily to acquire properties.
Councillor Holt.
One last thing. All of us are affected, all of our residents, all of our wards have council houses, so we've got residents that are affected by this programme. Would it be possible for councillors to have individual details or a plan of the works that are going to be undertaken with a timescale, so that we are aware of what's going to happen to those houses in our wards and how our residents will benefit from this programme? Would it be possible, please?
Yes, I think so. Councillors, are you happy now to move to debate? And who would like to open the debate? Thank you, Ms. Fenton, for your contribution. Nobody wants to enter into debate, so we go to a vote.
Just ask Councillor Carter if she wants to sum up.
Jessie, do you want to sum up before we go to vote?
I can do, yeah. So I think it's nobody wants to put prices up, nobody wants to put rents up, nobody wants to put council tax up. As I said earlier, there has been a lack of investment in the previous years, which has led us to the state that we are in. But hopefully the investment, well, I'm positive that the investment from this is going to go into making our houses livable, up to standard, above the standard, and to give our residents somewhere, our tenants, somewhere that they feel safe and they can feel happy to call their home.
Thank you. Now I'll hand over to Henriette.
Thank you, Chair. Members, we're going to the vote, and that vote is now in progress. Councillor Riley, may I take your vote, please? Councillor Beer, may I take your vote? Thank you. Thank you, members. That is 20 votes for, 3 votes against, and 2 abstentions. So that is carried, Chair.
I'll move on to BC/23/40, Joint Capital Investment and Treasury Management Strategies for the fiscal year 24-25. Now, Councillor Hurren would normally give this paper.
Who's giving it? Councillor Saw.
Councillor Saw, you have... yes. You'll introduce the paper.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay. as the Chair said, I am giving this report in place of Councillor Hurren, who I'm sure we all wish a speedy recovery to. This joint report is a statutory document. It's required by the SIPFA Code of Practice on Treasury Management 2021, the SIPFA Prudential Code 2021, and the DLUC Investment Guidance 2018. These regulations and guidance require local authorities to prepare and approve their capital strategy, investment strategy, and treasury management strategy annually before the start of the financial year. The report also contains the annual minimum revenue provision statement for 24-25. The codes of conduct recommend these strategies are subject to scrutiny before being presented to full council, and Joint Audit and Standards Committee reviewed this report on the 29th of January. The three strategies in the report set out the Council's approach to capital spend, borrowing and investment. We all know the government has reduced core funding for local government. In response, the Council has to become self-financing over the medium term and generate more funds. I'm sure this document has come before us before. I would draw your attention to the three appendices, A, B, and C, and the minimum revenue provision MRP statement in Appendix F. Out of these, I draw your attention mostly to the MRP provision. It sets out the Council's arrangements for setting aside resources during the financial year to enable the councils to repay debt in future years. This includes an amendment to the 2023-24 MRP statement preempting the impact of new regulations expected to come into force in 24-25, relating to the expected credit loss arising from loans made to Suffolk and Babergh Growth. I'm sure if you do have questions, I'm sure the officers will be totally capable of answering them, because I'm afraid I'm not. Before we move to questions, I require a seconder. Councillor Register, you're seconding. Thank you. We will now move to questions. And like I've said before, they must be relevant to the subject under discussion, and they must be a question. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Councillor Saw. You did a much better job than Councillor Hurren did when he was in your position.
Councillor Riley, I think that's uncalled for.
I'm sorry.
It's a bit below the belt,
right.
or if you're a sailor east of Windward.
Beautifully presented. Congratulations. It's good to see. Right, question, interesting question. Let's go to page 96. The minimum revenue provision requirements. And new reserves are proposed on losses of Babergh Growth Limited and Suffolk Limited. Now, Babergh Growth Limited really, we have one director, I think, one council director on Babergh Growth Limited, and that is Councillor Busby. So the question is, does Councillor Busby have who ask? I'll ask the Chief Executive. Does Councillor Busby have an indemnity for his actions as a director of Babergh Growth Limited?
Thank you, Councillor. I have no idea. I'm looking to the other end of the room. I suspect he does, and I suspect we have insurance in place. I'm getting nods. So yes, he does.
He does. Yes, he does. Oh, that's good. That's great. That's good.
Are you asking another question now?
I do. Yes, I am. Yes. Oh. I'm acknowledging a nod. You know, because a nod is not directed. I do beg your pardon.
Councillor Riley, ask your question.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Right. Okay. So my next question is that expected credit losses are coming forward, and are not. We know in other areas, there's a lack of confidence in the figures. I mean, we are a million miles away, I hope, from a councillor surcharge. When we're looking at other councils where councillors have not had the money expected, that they've been surcharged or threatened with surcharges, we're a million, I'll have to just check with you that it has been considered and we're a million miles away from it.
Councillor Riley, what is your question?
Are we a million miles away from suffering council surcharges through not making the revenues we expect? I mean, Babergh growth, I'll rephrase it. Yeah. Babergh growth is going into, is liquid, it's going into insolvency.
Are you making a statement that
no,
Babergh growth is going into insolvency?
Right,
or are you asking a question about the financial situation of Babergh growth? I'll ask the Chief Exec to...
Well, I'm happy to have the conversation with Councillor Riley outside the meeting because I don't understand the expression councillor surcharge. I'm not quite sure what's meant by that. If the concern, if I link the two questions, if the concern is are councillors vulnerable to being charged something out of your own pockets, no, you're not.
Thank you.
Does that allay your fears? Thank you.
Page 109, Babergh's CFR capital financing requirement is expected to increase by 5.15 million. And I'm asking, is the key driver for this Corks Lane?
Councillor Saw, can you answer, or do you want...
Paragraph 2.22.
Or Councillor Ward. Can the officer answer or provide clarity?
I'm afraid we're not viewing you and only barely able to hear you. Could you repeat the question, please?
Right, Councillor Riley, now's your opportunity.
I didn't quite hear the response.
Needs the question.
Babergh's capital financing requirement is expected to increase by 5.15 million. And the question was, is the key driver of that figure what's happening at Corks Lane, or is there something else?
The capital financing requirement is the level of indebtedness that the council has and is forecast to hold. And it's a function of the capital programme, how much we want to borrow on the capital programme. It's a function on any, it's a function also of any short-term cash that we have to borrow in order to finance the overall organisation to keep it liquid.
Does that answer your query? Councillor Holt? I'll come to you. It's Councillor Holt first. You've had 3 questions.
Sorry to hop on about it, but boring. Again, page 107, capital financing increasing from 24-25 to 25-26. It's jumped from 22-23 by 4 million to 9.2. It's jumping from 23-24 to 25-26 to 14.25. Perhaps the officer could tell me the interest rates we are going to be paying on the 9.2 million, which it refers to in 2.11 on page 106, for the council officers.
Mike will remind me if I get this wrong. Our current assumptions on debt is 5.06 interest rate on any borrowing at this point in time, as advised by our advisors, Arlen Close.
Yes.
May I ask the officer what that would equate to in year 1, year 2, and year 3, and year 4?
I don't have those figures to hand, but they are included in the revenue budget report that Council's just approved earlier on in its Genders meeting.
Councillor Holt? Yeah? You happy with the reply? You're parked. Okay. Any other, Councillor McCraw?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it would be helpful to members to have somebody explain exactly why we're having to make differing MRP arrangements in respect of both Babergh Growth and SIFCO, because there is a specific reason, I believe, and I wonder if somebody could explain what that specific reason is. We were originally encouraged to borrow money to make a profit, and I was wondering, Councillor Ward, would you have anything you could add to just throw some light on this, because I'm not sure it's clearly understood.
As far as I understand it, the government has decided it doesn't like the current rules around minimum revenue provision, and it wants to change them.
Who brought them in?
The government is changing the ground rules, effectively, on MRP, and we're having to make the expected credit loss provisions to cover that. I don't know the details, I don't understand the details, but the government is now concerned, you're right, they have encouraged us to borrow, to invest, to borrow to do all sorts of things, and now they're getting cold feet.
Councillor Holt, and then Councillor Saw.
I did ask a similar question earlier, Councillor McCraw, during the general budget. I think as members we need to have that information, and I'm concerned Councillor Wood doesn't know, because if he doesn't know, we certainly aren't going to know.
I don't believe the government knows.
Well, I think we're still waiting for the guidance to come out, which I think is the key for this. But I seriously think we all need to be briefed and have a better understanding as and when we're all officers are clear on it.
Thank you. Councillor Saw.
I agree with Councillor Holt. I believe that the provisions we've made are on the advice of our Treasury management advisors, and therefore are their best guesstimate at this moment, given the government hasn't given clarity.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any more questions, or can we move to debate? Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can we go to page 112, table number 7, outstanding borrowing, debt, 2, 3, forecast out, current forecast outturn, 126 million. Future forecast, 161 million. What's driving the jump of you, what, 25 million? And borrowing over the next couple of years? It can't all be on the housing account.
Is your question clearly expressed?
Well, it is from my point of view, Madam Chairman.
Yes, but you're, as the transmitter,
Table
you should
7,
ensure the receivers can
Table 7,
understand
outstanding borrowing debt. Currently, the forecast for the current year is 126 million. The forecast in 4 years' time is 161 million. And the question is, why?
Okay.
I mean, there's a more basic question.
I'm going to ask Karen Watling.
Why are we seeing a 30 million jump in borrowing?
Okay, I heard you. I'm asking Karen Watling to come in. She's interim corporate manager finance. Councillor Ward.
Yeah, I think it would help if Karen did provide some background. But Councillor Riley, if you look at table 6, it has a breakdown of the outstanding borrowing from both the general fund and the HRA. You'll see how each of those is forecast to increase. As to the precise items that are driving that, well, obviously I'll ask Karen and perhaps also Deborah Fenton with regard to the HRA to provide some background. But if not, we can get you answers, specific answers in the fullness of time. But you'll see from that table it provides more detail on your question.
Thank you. Karen, can you come in, please?
Oh, I don't have a breakdown of the figures, but it's fairly simple. A rise in borrowing means we're investing more in our capital programme by borrowing to fund capital programme, both on the HRA and the general fund. It means we're either refinancing existing debt as debt falls due, or we're borrowing short term in order to keep the council liquid. They're the three functions of why the borrowing increases.
Okay. Councillor Riley, does that clarify your understanding?
Madam, the acoustics and the quality of the communication here makes it impossible for me to understand what's going on. And what I suggest is that I talk to Ms. Watling during a couple of days, and I can satisfy myself there. If I'm dissatisfied, I can come back to the council.
I think that's a very good idea. Can we now move on to debate? And can somebody open the debate? And again, don't all rush together. Councillor Saw, would you like to sum up? Or has Councillor McCraw got something he wishes to say, and then Councillor Saw could
We've actually looked at the
sum up?
report, which was the quarterly report for this very paper just
So-
last month. So most of us are pretty familiar with the sort of content we'd expect to see in this. This is merely the annual statement with, I think, this additional provision which I just referred to earlier. So I would propose we move to the vote.
Thank you. Councillor Saw? Okay. Councillor Holt? I did scan the room.
Yeah, but your eyes didn't see me.
That would be very hard.
I'm not wearing green. It was just, I keep on about borrowing, 5% on borrowing. We're borrowing a lot of money, and that's going to, as I said before, hit us hard. And the other thing that annoys with these papers is when I see Gateway 14 in the middle of it, because I've got to dissect that. Can we just try and just stick to our own figures? Because reading through this paper, you're all of a sudden, you're reading along and it's mid-Suffolk this, mid-Suffolk that. It's so much easier if we can just have our own paper, especially on a topic like this, and the budget, where it really is so important to get your facts and figures right.
Okay, thank you. I'm now going to ask the Assistant Manager Governance to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Councillor Riley, may I take your vote, please? Sorry. Against. Are you voting against? Thank you. Councillor Beer, may I take your vote?
Against.
Against. Thank you. Thank you, members. That is 20 votes for and 5 votes against, so that's carried, Chair.
Thank you very much. We now move to receive notification of petitions in accordance with the Council Procedure Rules. The petition for debate in accordance with the Council's petition scheme. Now, before I continue, I'm going to ask the Acting Monitoring Officer to readdress an email sent out earlier today to members, to councillors, on predisposition and predetermination.
Thank you, Chair. So just to remind councillors who are members of Cabinet or Overview and Scrutiny, you should be mindful of predetermining yourselves. The Localism Act 2011 does allow you to have a predisposition, but you need to, in essence, to be careful of how you are speaking tonight. You're entitled to that predisposition, one way or another, as long as you have not predetermined the outcome of any debate. Tonight we have no proposals on the table. We are debating the petition, but eventually there will be proposals that do come to Cabinet and overview and scrutiny, so care should be taken. So again, you are able to express an opinion, providing that you come to that relevant meeting with an open mind and demonstrate that you are in the meeting, and this can be by your behaviour, and you should be able to take account in that meeting of the evidence and make your decision on that day. If there's any further points of clarification, I'm happy to take those, but just exercise care.
Councillor Maybury.
If I could have some advice, please, from the monitoring officer or the chief executive. This item has not been discussed, but I am the chair of the Traffic Working Party in Lavenham, but this item has not been discussed there.
Chair, that is fine for Councillor Maybury to continue.
Any other questions to clarify understanding? I see frowns on some faces. Councillor Holt?
Always frowning. A little bit confused about this. I assume it's the same as planning. If we're discussing something that may or may not come up, because we're hypothetically talking about something that the Cabinet may be certain might come forward, but we as members do not know that. Yeah. So, I'm not sure why you've issued that guidance, because surely, as members, we're allowed to debate in a chamber like this. This is what it's for. And I'm not quite sure how you can restrict or try and confine that debate to something that may or may not come forward in the future.
So, Chair, we are aware that the proposals, when they do come forward, will come forward to overview and scrutiny and then go on to Cabinet for agreement, whatever form they come in. So what I'm urging caution to those members is to, you can be predisposed to have an opinion. That is absolutely fine. But if you're going to come out and actually make strong statements to say, I am dead against any parking proposals, then you will be predetermining yourself by not having that open mind when it actually does come forward.
But that is their choice.
That is their choice. I'm just giving them words of caution.
Okay. Now then, we're going to report and debate the following petition, which has received a total of 8,758 validated signatures. It is to do with council car park charges. We, the undersigned, petition the council not to change the current free parking arrangements provided in council-run car parks in Sudbury, Hadley and Lavenham. The introduction of extra car parking charges would further reduce the number of customers, employees and viability of retail businesses in the above town centres. Consequently, business rate income will reduce, as will, I'm losing the line here, as will retail choice offered, resulting in less footfall. No economic assessment has been carried out in a rural area where car usage is essential, as no reliable public service transport network is available. Only 14% of households do not have a car, and many of those will be town dwellers. Now then, the lead petitioner will be asked to present the petition for up to 3 minutes. The appropriate Cabinet member will be invited to respond to the petition for up to 3 minutes. The Council will then move to debate, where all councillors will have the opportunity to speak once and for 3 minutes. Questions of clarification only can be asked of the lead petitioner. No other questions will be accepted unless by discretion of the Chair. Once the debate has ended, the Chair will look to a proposer and a seconder for a proposal based on the following options, which is to vote in support of the petition, to vote against the petition, to note the petition, to refer the petition to another body, portfolio holder or officer for consideration, and that the appropriate bodies in this case would be Overview and Scrutiny and Cabinet. A maximum of 30 minutes would normally be given to an exercise like this, but using my discretion, I have extended the timescale to 60 minutes only if necessary, and will allow the debate to continue for this length of time, as long as the debate is not merely repeating what has already been said. Therefore, I invite the lead petitioner, Councillor Clover.
Madam Chairman, can I ask for a point of clarification from you?
Yes, if I'm able to answer it.
Can you just explain to me what is different between this and all the other items we've had on the agenda, when normally we have questions from members and then we go into debate?
Because this is a petition.
It is because it's the petition. It's not because you've decided that that's...
No,
right?
no.
Thank you very much.
I don't decide those things. It's the powers
Most
that
things
be.
are done in the name of the chair.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, that is the rules of petitions, as in the Constitution. 3 minutes.
I'll do my best, Chair. Thank you.
Yep, we are timing
The
everyone.
decision to raise a petition for no change to Babergh car park charges was prompted by a number of reasons. One, a decision to implement car park charges was taken by the previous Rainbow Coalition, and without this petition, District Council members, both new and old, would not be allowed to debate and scrutinise this proposal. At face value, this would appear to be undemocratic. The power to implement this decision rests solely with the Cabinet and the Director of Operations, again undemocratic given the issue at hand. 3, the refusal by Cabinet to have any assessment on the impact this decision would have on our local economies. 4, no explanation as to why the cost relating to car parks has risen from $185,000 in 2021 to $427,000 in 23-24. And 5, the fact that the $427,000 cost figure appears to be a guesswork figure and does not account for some of the 300,000 business rates that will be returned within that figure. Now that the budget is balanced, isn't there even less need for car park charges? Also, why should the Cabinet leaders be seeking to introduce car park charges without having accurate financial information for a proper informed decision to be made? Cabinet leaders have said charges will have no impact, they are going to happen, and decreasing traffic increases footfall and spend. There is no evidence to back these statements. Deloitte and other expert analysis report that free parking is the most critical deciding factor in determining where shoppers shop, and that car park charges can reduce car visitors by up to 30%. The petition has been validated as receiving 8,758 signatures, approximately 11.6% of the Babergh adult population, a strongly representative proportion. These are the residents whose best interests we have promised to represent in return for the privilege of being elected by them. There are another 2,000 shoppers who are not eligible to be counted. Make no mistake, these town centre car parks serve all Babergh wards. The petition shows us that visitors come from a wide radius, including Colchester, Clacton, Ipswich, Needham Market, Stowmarket, Bury St Edmunds, Chelmsford, Braintree, Halstead and surrounding villages. All district councillors who represent these town centres have spoken out against these car park charges. There is no guarantee that any income raised will be wholly used for the delivery of car parking services. This is simply an unjustified extra tax on our residents and business owners. The basis for introducing car park charges has not been properly established. It has been hastily presented and it's ultimately undemocratic. Therefore, I ask you to support this petition.
Thank you very much. Spot on time. Councillor Busby, are you going to respond or are you going to give it to Councillor Potter?
No, I shall respond.
You shall respond. Fine.
On what basis? I'm the Cabinet member. Interesting. 8,000 signatures, free car parking. I said, you didn't ask me, I'd have signed it. Especially if you could have got motor tax on there for nothing as well. I mean, why not? It was just one half of a sentence, wasn't it? What was going to be the cost of delivering this thing? You didn't ask anybody whether they were prepared to lose things to get that. And one of the things I found very difficult was that you didn't structure the petition in, I don't think, the right way. You reckon in Sudbury, car parking, free car parking is probably the #1 priority. I would have asked, why can't the town council take on the responsibility of car parks to ensure that we are in control of car parking? I mean, it's interesting that Sudbury Town Council have a spend of over £800,000 in a year, and of that £800,000, 0 is spent on car parks. Seems like a strange #1 priority. As for saying it's not the right kind of tax, it actually is the perfect kind of tax. It's the kind of tax where if people use it, they pay it. If people don't use it, then they don't pay the tax. That's exactly the way we should be taxing people. Not just taxing people across the whole spectrum, which is what we do at the moment. So I'm paying £10 a year for your free car parking in Sudbury and Hadley. So's people out on Shotley Peninsula. But I still have to pay if I go to Colchester, and I have to pay if I go to Ipswich. So I'm paying twice. Would you like to pay my brown bin in lieu of me paying for your car parking? No, of course you wouldn't. What do Sudbury have that they think they can demand money from everybody else? It isn't special that way. We have run a policy of discretionary taxes, which is if you use the service, you can pay for that service. And that's what happens with car parking. Now look, we know that we've got a lot of money to try and raise, but if it wasn't for that, I think I would still say that we should be having car parking charges. We have climate change problems. We have flooding. We have too much traffic in the towns. We have poor air quality. But you don't seem to want to do anything about it in Sudbury. You know, we can't keep burying our head in the sand. We have to do things. We have to make changes. And there is evidence to show that if you take traffic out of town centres, more people will go in and spend longer in there because it's more comfortable. I mean, I don't enjoy walking up and round the marketplace in Sudbury because it's too much traffic. Once I get round the back, it's okay. But in the centre, not attractive at all.
Councillor Busby, your time is up, I'm afraid. Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Register?
Yes, sort of in response to David, Councillor Busby, Sudbury Town Council, full council, has agreed it is not in any financial position able to take on parking in Sudbury, and has therefore not agreed to do so. Sudbury is special because it's got between 2 and 3% empty shops. There's not many other towns in Suffolk with that level of empty properties. And we are removing car parking as an experiment in the next 2 summers in the Market Hill, as full council agreed last week. But whether short-term free parking should be retained is a question I've had to question myself about. I am, as many of you know, an advocate for active travel, getting people to leave their cars at home for short trips and cycle or walk to work, to the shops and to school. But if you offer the carrot of free parking, then this behavioural change becomes harder. However, Babergh has no stretch of cycle path and indeed lacks some footpaths that make this shift safe for everyone. People can walk where footpaths exist and are wide enough, but there is nothing to make cycling safe at all. No coherent joined-up routes from any residential area to school, town centre or business parks. 70% of those who would cycle won't for this very reason. So the car is the unfortunate solution for most people. This is an unavoidable conclusion. We carried out a survey on a Saturday in 3 Sudbury car parks. We collected 66 responses. I'll give you a short summary of what we found. The vast majority of people park and shop in Sudbury weekly. 2/3 are influenced in where to shop by the free parking. If they had to pay, half would reconsider where they would go shopping. And a number of, when you took the £300,000 cost of parking into account, only 10% actually changed their mind on this. But if they could park for 1 hour, then half would probably continue to shop in Sudbury. One comment I heard myself was, I went to the market. If there was no free parking, I would do that shopping in Sainsbury's. The most common comment was that government is to blame for this move, having to be considered by Babergh, as we outlined
Councillor
earlier.
Register, sorry to interrupt you, but I have to, before we get to the magic hour of 8:30, I need to ask councillors if they wish to vote by a show of hands to continue the meeting. That's carried. We can
I'm
proceed.
nearly finished. I have to conclude that removing free parking would undoubtedly damage the Sudbury economy, and therefore I cannot support it. It's not as if it will pay for all the cycle routes and footpaths needed. That requires government funding that has been cut by 75% in the last year. The last finding from our survey is that 1/3 of those who asked had travelled less than 3 miles and half less than 5 miles.
You have 20 seconds left.
The potential for more people cycling and walking is there. The political will to make it happen in Parliament is not.
Thank you. Councillor Porter, did I see your hand up? Yes, please. And then Jane Carruthers, followed by Catherine Grandon.
Yes, you did. Thank you, Chair. My colleague, Councillor Register, has covered some of the areas of alternative parking. But I'd like to concentrate on shopping behaviour. This is certain to be influenced by an offset of parking charges. Focus can shift more towards those supermarket retail for the free parking, and also finding available low price goods online, a major competitor to High Street. I think most of us are in agreement with that. Effects on these behaviours are psychological. An effect of the pricing and the parking time. Generally, customers spend less time. Once they know a cost on their time, it's an associated increment. Market and town shops alike will soon map out the cost of distributions. I want to talk about older customers. These will require a premium on both accessible and free parking. Many customers that I speak to during my own shops will attest that. You'll find a routine that's been an essential part of their livelihood, their week. It is an extra cost consideration, affecting decisions made on their time spent on the outdoors. As it is, the older demographic already faces numerous challenges, both mental and physical, in a world that can feel disconnected, lonely and isolated. Removing free parking isn't just a financial consequence to bear, it's also a social one. It's clear without free parking, drivers will undoubtedly find creative alternatives to park elsewhere for free. The risk to this can only result in additional congestion, such as in Councillor Clover's ward in Flavlam. This could create a chaotic situation of its own making. The local economy and our market towns are intertwined, serving community and local business. For an additional cost to this be borne upon the Babergh public, and it is all Babergh, it is my belief it will become detrimental to the High Street. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Potter. Now, Councillor Jane Carruthers, and then Councillor Saw.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry?
Brandon as well.
Yeah, I've got you. I've got you, Jane. I've got you.
Thank you.
And Councillor
All 3 district councillors in Hadley are worried that the loss of free parking would be detrimental to the viability of our high street. In January, we undertook a survey of car park users to assess local opinion. This took place on 2 very cold consecutive Fridays and Saturdays, as these tend to be the busiest days. Councillor Dowling designed the survey and analysed the raw data we collected.
He has a Cambridge doctorate in education studies, a branch of social science, in which mixed method surveys of this type are a frequently used tool. He is well versed in survey methodology, having been trained in it by international experts, and has utilised similar instruments in his own research. We collected 189 responses to our survey and found that of those, 186 had come to Hadley to use the high street services. When we asked how far they travelled to get to Hadley, the mean distance was 5.4 miles, as most had come from surrounding villages. 62 had travelled a mile or less, and a surprising number had come from larger towns, including Ipswich and Colchester. We would like to encourage visitors from surrounding towns and villages to enjoy Hadley and all it has to offer. 70% of respondents said that the 3 hours free parking influenced their choice to visit Hadley, with 67% saying they would be unlikely to use the car parks if short-stay charging was introduced. The idea of having the first hour free was welcomed by 65% of people. Of these, 25% said they would be very likely to use the car parks, and 40% somewhat likely. Apart from the potential loss of trade to our independent retailers and eateries, there is much concern among residents that motorists will park on surrounding streets, leading to more traffic in residential areas. I very much agree with Councillor Clover that in a rural area, car usage is essential as there is no reliable public service transport network. But surely this is down to the Conservative government and the Conservative-run County Council failing to invest in public transport for decades. If they had, residents would have a choice. Until measures to improve the provision of public transport, cycle lanes and adequate footpaths are prioritised, people will have no choice but to drive into our town centres, creating a growing need for car parking. If any member would like a copy of our survey results, please do get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Grandon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hadley's independent high street is the heart of our town and its prosperity. That is why Hadley councillors want to keep the 3 hours free parking. But businesses strongly feel, to quote Huffer's cafe owner, Babergh just doesn't care about the businesses of Hadley. We surveyed every high street business. We have confidence in the integrity of the survey. You have been made aware of Councillor Downing's credentials by Councillor Carruthers. He did not frame questions to suit needs. The survey showed 3 main points. 1, that there was overwhelming support from the businesses to maintain 3 hours free parking. 95% said it was very important to their businesses. 2, 63% felt that the introduction of any level of parking fees would have a very negative impact on their businesses. 3, 62% of businesses considered that 1 hour free parking would still have a negative impact on their business. It was not enough time. For many businesses, it takes only a small change to have a negative impact on their viability. Gavin Alexander, co-owner of Yarnworks in Hadley High Street, says, "Whilst I understand that Babergh has a huge financial hole to fill, I strongly believe that this will drive visitors away from shopping areas, causing many already struggling small businesses to close. Having addressed this with dozens of our customers, the majority of them said that they shop in Hadley because of the free parking and would reconsider their shopping and eating options if they had to pay for parking. Volunteers for each do 3-hour shifts based on free parking periods, and so they donate their time and petrol but won't be paying for parking fees. Hospitality may be particularly impacted. Meakin Errol, owner of Huffer's Cafe, says, "Hospitality in general is suffering at the moment.
You have 30
and
seconds,
I feel
Councillor
will be put off
Grandin.
for staying for a meal. I don't think this is the right time to be doing this and feel Babergh doesn't care about the businesses of Hadley. The demise of Ipswich demonstrates what can happen when a council charges high parking fees. In January, a national paper highlighted Banbury's once thriving high street, now in decline, and said parking is the biggest issue. Empty businesses don't deliver tax or attract residents
Councillor
to the
Grandin,
area.
you've come to
What's
the end of your time. Thank you very much.
Meetings if the investment the business need is free
You need to
parking?
finish now. Thank you very much. Councillor Saw, you have 3 minutes starting now.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'm on record as saying that I was not enamoured of this, but I also think I need to point out that whereas people have been taking, colleagues have taken the time and trouble to survey their communities, they have not asked their communities what they are prepared to give up. And we have sat through the budget debate. You've all asked some very searching questions, and I feel that we need to say, if we do not do this, what's the alternative? Nobody has said what the alternative is. I just want to put a few pointers down so you can think about this. For example, planning enforcement, something our communities are very keen on. If we stop planning enforcement, we'd save £220,000 a year. If we decided not to plant trees or grass cut or hedge cut, we would save a lot of money. If we decided to shut our leisure centres, we would save £230,000 an annum paid to the contractors, but we would also ensure that the 26% of our population that is physically inactive doesn't have anywhere to go to. We would ensure that the elderly people and their carers had nowhere to go to talk about dementia and dementia care. Now let's look at homelessness. This is a rising problem in rural areas. Obviously, there are some elements that are statutory and some that are externally funded as well. But we will be losing a lot of money on that, around about 320,000. And I should point out that Suffolk County Council
You have 30 seconds,
are asking
Councillor
us to
Thorpe.
take on more responsibilities for this. So I would ask people to think very seriously about the services that we will have to cut, and perhaps we will have to do that as well. But, as Councillor Busby has pointed out, car parking is a discretionary spend. And I would say that people will not go from Sudbury to Bury, where the costs are even higher.
Councillor Beer, you asked to speak. You have 3 minutes starting
Thank
now.
you. Well, I won't repeat a lot of what Councillor Granton said. I fully support her. I would just add that Babergh doesn't care about Sudbury either. The businesses there, the people there, the shops, all going about their daily work, making life very difficult for them. I spent 4 or 5 hours, Huppers Day to Huppers 1, on the Market Hill on a Saturday, very cold day. I did not offer any opinion, believe it or not, but I didn't. I just said there was a petition here, read it, see whether you agree or not agree. And people willingly came up. They were angry. They really were angry. They did come up with ideas of where to save money, and you wouldn't like what they said. You really would not like, members, what they said you should be saving. I just stood there and I listened. I didn't pass any comment because I knew that if I did something like that, I could be excluded from this debate. Now, you have to remember that if we went down the road of increasing car parking charges even more, or cutting the time, people who go into the town won't pay those charges. They'll try and park in the side streets. Yes, they will. You needn't shake your head. I'm one of them. So, you're wrong. So do many other people. They go there because it's convenient. They can go in, they know they've got this allocated time, and they support the local shops. You will kill them off quicker than anything. And to suggest that the footfall won't decrease, you're living in cloud cuckoo land. You really are. There are other ways you can save money, and as I say, they will tell you. So ask them. You could have come along and you could have stood there and listened. You know that, you were invited. You'd have heard what they're saying. At the end of the day, Sudbury Town Council also, and I'm a member of that, you say that they didn't consider purchasing this or raising £800,000, Councillor Busby, or whatever it was, but that's not
30
where
seconds,
right,
Councillor Beer.
that's not where it stops with the district council. You want money out of the town for all sorts of things, so it doesn't end there, and certainly not. They couldn't take this on at all. Yes, you do know what I'm referring to. At the end of the day, if you want to kill off Sudbury, you do the worst, and that will be to increase charges or cut down the time. And I appeal to those members who live in the towns and the nearby villages and the sort of areas I represent to bear that in mind.
Councillor Maybury, please.
Yes, I'll finish.
Thank you very much. I'm going to start.
You have 3 minutes from now.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to start by Councillor Saw asked if we've got any suggestions. Well, why not follow Lavenham? I represent Lavenham Ward. Lavenham have 2 car parks which are owned by Babergh. The third is not. It's owned by the parish council. In those 2 car parks, and mainly in the main one, they have a donation scheme. And guess how much that brings in per annum? Because if you multiply that by the number of car parks that Babergh owns, you would more than cover expenses. Lavenham, 1 car park brings in £20,000 a year. Now, I know you're all going to argue and say, oh, well, it's Lavenham and it's tourists and all the rest of it. But not everybody contributes to the donations. So why does Babergh not put in donation pads? Easy, get a card, tap it, put in £1 or £2 if you wish to. That is one way for a donation. Now, I'm not an advocate for car parking charges whatsoever, but this is a donation, and it's up to people if they do it. We've also heard that it won't, charging in car parks won't have any knock-on effect. In Lavenham it will, because in Lavenham, the housing does not have designated car parking spaces. They don't have garages, a lot of them are terraced, they can't get round to the back of the car, so they have to park on the side of the road. And if we bring in car parking charges, what will happen? The visitors, whoever they may be, will be pushed out onto the side roads, and then they'll be utter chaos because the residents who live, work in those places cannot find anywhere to park their car. I actually had one resident the other day who said to me, if they bring in car parking charges, I am moving out of Lavenham. Now that is going to be a bit of a disaster. If you knew, I'm not going to tell you who it was, but if you knew who it was, you'd be really worried. But I think we also need to look at other evidence that has come forward. And the Suffolk Observatory report in 2019 stated, we have a lack of investment in traffic infrastructure.
You have 30 seconds, Councillor Maybury.
Well, I'm not going to get very far, am I? But what I'm trying to say is the main reason that we need cars in this area, we don't have any local transport, we don't have safe walking routes. I live quite a distance from a supermarket, and there is no way that I could walk and lug back my shopping. So people who live in rural areas.
Thank you. Time. Can I now move to Sally Davis? You have 3 minutes, Sally.
I acknowledge the concerns and the depth of feeling about car parking charges, but you won't be surprised to know that that depth of feeling is not felt elsewhere in Babergh. To me, this petition is premature. It's taking place in a vacuum of knowledge. We're currently exploring the possibility of charging for car parking. We don't know what might be proposed. There might be elements of free parking. We don't know what level the charges are going to be. We know nothing like that. So why are we debating a petition that shuts down any exploration of those possibilities? And all of those factors, the level of charges, maybe a bit of free parking, they all factor into what the consequences of this are going to be. This petition wants a commitment not to impose any sort of change to the car parking structure. We've just discussed our dire budgeting position. We've just discussed it. Why should we shut down the possibility of exploring a way of making substantial revenue gains? I actually think it would be irresponsible, bordering on the negligent, not to allow ourselves the possibility of exploring car parking charges when we are in such a dire budgetary situation.
Thank you. Councillor Ward. Are you asleep? Your 3 minutes are starting now.
Right, okay. I've only received 12 emails in total, despite people being encouraged to write to me. 8 against parking charges and 4 in favour of charging. Not as overwhelming as we might have expected. I'd like to quote from 2 of them. Firstly, from a Hadley resident. I and several other people I've spoken to are in favour of bringing in car parking charges. I understand that the council has to gain income from somewhere, and that without this, cuts may have to be made to other services. Many people do not drive, and it seems wrong for those to subsidise car drivers who choose to use council car parks. Despite the scare stories, I don't think people will change their habits. People still continue to drive when fuel prices were significantly higher than they are now. Second is from Lavenham. We are Lavenham car driving residents and support parking charges in principle. In reference to the petition, this person goes on to say, if only such time and effort were put into lobbying for improved bus services. It concludes, those of us who take a different view on charges are mostly afraid to say so, and certainly we have never been offered the opportunity of signing a pro-fees petition. We hope that common sense prevails and Babergh increases income to be used beneficially. So very interesting and thoughtful comments, although the one about being afraid to speak out is worrying. I'm not sure what's going on in Lavenham. Now, the £425,000 cost has been discussed a lot. It's not guesswork, and we have provided the breakdown. And I can confirm that very little business rates collected is retained by us. It is an accurate number. The petition is not clear or complete. It doesn't address what would have to be cut to retain free parking. Not only that, its main premise that business viability would be affected is wrong. High Street success is based on what is on offer, not on whether there are parking charges or not. Evidence from all over the country supports this. It has been said that we should cut staff instead. But who? We don't have people sitting around doing nothing, despite that belief amongst some. They are delivering services. If you cut staff, by definition, you'll cut services. They're two sides of the same coin. So which services? No one is prepared to answer that, or indeed face up to that reality. Now, at the weekend, I conducted a brief survey of my own in Hadley before the rain brought it to a halt. It was illuminating. When pressed to choose between discretionary service cuts or modest car parking charges, people overwhelmingly chose the latter. They value those services.
30 seconds, Councillor Ward.
I'll finish by posing a question, one that we should all ponder. How many officer jobs are we willing to sacrifice? How many families are we willing to disrupt? How many services that our residents clearly cherish are we willing to put at risk just so some people don't have to pay £1 or £2 to park their cars? This petition has been conducted without all the facts being made available to the public, and so we need to proceed very carefully when coming to a vote. We need to complete our consultation and evidence gathering and then inform residents of our proposals before a final decision is made.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Parker.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Right, can I start off by congratulating Councillor Clover on your efforts over 8,500 votes is actually a very good effort, and it's a good demonstration of democracy. So I applaud you for that. And don't be too premature in round of applause. And I think that it's really important, as well as councillors, that we all get to have this debate and that we are seen to have this debate as well. Because what people may not realise if they're watching is that actually it will not be the decision of councillors in this chamber, ordinary councillors, it will be cabinet members that get to decide how this moves forward. But to not discuss the implementation of car parking charges seems to me to be illogical. To not have that discussion, at least, would be illogical, given everything that we've heard this evening. The debate that we're having here at the moment seems to me to be a binary debate. It's a conversation around whether we are going to introduce parking charges or whether we are not going to introduce parking charges. And I just wonder if there isn't another way. And I've been pilloried for mentioning this before, but I'm going to continue to mention it. In 2011, members won't be aware, or may not be aware, but in 2011, Sudbury Chamber of Commerce actually worked up a framework for a community interest company, a CIC, into which it was proposed that the car parks could be placed. So the question is if the largest proportion of cost is business rates, and we want to do away with that cost, then would a CIC rid us of the problem? I don't know the answer to that, but I would absolutely urge Cabinet to take it on board and to consider it. Because if it were an option, if it were a workable option, then it gives us the opportunity not to have this binary Sudbury versus Babergh constant battle that we're having, but to work in a collaborative manner, so that we can have Babergh District Council, Sudbury Town Council, Hadley Town Council, Lavenham Parish Council and the Chamber working together to come up with a collaborative solution. Because car parks do cost. They have to be tarmacked, potholes have to be filled, lines have to be painted, so there is a cost. Realistically, we all know that. And so I think realistically
30 seconds, Councillor Parker.
I think that the solution actually does lie within this room amongst us councillors, if we have the political will to work it out amongst ourselves. Just really quickly, with regards to the petition, Councillor Clover, you say there that the introduction of car parking charges would further reduce the number of customers. We don't know that it would. Consequently, business rates income will reduce. Well, we don't know that that's the case. So on a pure technicality, I cannot support your petition.
Thank you very much. Councillor McCraw.
Thank you, Chair.
3 minutes from now.
Deja vu all over again. 2015, my very first independent group meeting. We did a straw poll, and amongst 8 of us, I think we came up with 3 different parking policies. It hasn't changed, and I've heard proposals in term 2015-2019, which were sort of quickly parked, if you pardon the expression, kicked into the long grass. I served on scrutiny, which examined the previous proposals, and then a call-in on that scrutiny. Now, my problem with this, this petition is that it doesn't actually, it contains a lot of assumptions. I'm not sure I can accept these unevidenced assumptions that this is what will happen, that is what will happen, because it doesn't happen elsewhere. People, for example, spend money putting the fuel in their car to drive to these places, to these towns, and are quite happy to pay for the fuel, so why not? Maybe for the car parking. I've got it in mind, though, that the most appropriate proposal, for this reason, we have a consultation or an engagement going on at this moment, okay? That will be brought back, guaranteed. You'll get another bite of the cherry on this one, and that will be brought back with the evidence from that. A report will go to overview and scrutiny, and then on to Cabinet. This is not a done deal now. We can't make a decision now. We can address the petition. Now, amongst the options available to us, and the one I believe to be most appropriate, no point going to ONS, we're going to do that anyway. I don't think I could support it as it stands, because I don't accept the arguments being made. I don't think they're evidenced. And I'm not going to vote against it, because I think we're still talking about it. So I would like to propose formally, Madam Chair, that this petition be noted as being one of the options presented to us by the Interim Monitoring Officer, and I ask for a seconder in that
Do you have
spirit.
a seconder? Councillor Busby seconding. Can we go to the vote?
Vote on that option.
We can go to the vote on that option. Okay? Yes, yeah. We've had a proposal from the floor, it's been seconded, and we now go to a vote.
We've had a proposal, it's been seconded.
Sorry, is that the same as a petition as well, Chair? Because you are now cutting out several members from speaking. Surely in a petition we're all allowed to voice our views and opinions.
No problem with that.
Chair, we've got two options here. We can allow councillors to carry on talking. We must deal with the recommendation that's just been put forward. But if the Chair's discretion is, we can either we can carry on and allow councillors to finish the debate and then take that option first, or we can go to it thingy. But it's down to the Chair's discretion. And I was,
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll carry on debating. Councillor Holt, Councillor Davis, Councillor Riley, who else? Remember, it's only once. Well, yeah, if you go. 3 minutes starting now.
Okay, car parking charges. I sat in the previous cabinet and voted them in. I was on the previous cabinet and prevented them from being, or tried to prevent them from being put forward. We proposed them during COVID, and there was a shortfall then. And as I said, I supported it. I have changed my mind. I do not support introducing car parking charges or changing the tariffs because we are still in a very economic, volatile situation. Our high streets are suffering. Every high street is the same. And I do get concerned with Councillor Ward's, in my view, naive and worrying statement that it would have no economic impact. The health and well-being of our residents is key, I believe, and Sudbury has a valuable, very valuable asset in its meadows and walks, and many, many visitors and many, many residents come in and use them. I believe they will be affected and will not take advantage of those wonderful recreational meadows that we have in the walks. So our health and well-being of our residents is key, I believe, and that will be affected in my opinion. The previous proposals that were put forward to the previous cabinet that I sat on generated very little income. Very, very little income. If you're prepared to sacrifice the economic viability of our market towns for very little income, then shame on you. The model showed moving of traffic by introducing car parking charges, and that was a key driver, was to shift the model, shift the mode of transport down to Kingfisher and Station Road, a bottleneck that exists already. And all you want to do, and it's proven in the strategy, is to move the vehicles out of North Street and Girling Street down into what is already an existing bottleneck. The idea was to have a roundabout at Waitrose and a one-way system up Ingramswell Road to facilitate that car parking structure and strategy. That isn't going to happen. I don't think you should be considering it at all, because you cannot justify doing it. You mentioned cuts. We can find cuts. If you let us in, we'll provide you with them. You can laugh as much as you want, but you're talking about market towns and the viability of them. It's an economic hub for Babergh, both market towns, Hadley and Sudbury, and you can't ignore that. It brings in residents from various parishes that meet on a regular basis. And you're preventing them from being able to do that. Older residents come in, they see their friends from years ago. It's their only opportunity to engage in conversation, some of these people. You cannot cut that away from them.
Councillor Holt?
I've done.
Good, because it's done. Thank you very much. Councillor Newman, you've got 3 minutes.
I won't be 3 minutes. I'm a shop holder, fortunately in Cornard, not in Sudbury. If I was in Sudbury, I'd be frightened to death. They are frightened to death in Sudbury. I know all the businesses in Sudbury. I use all the businesses in Sudbury. The first thing they say to me is what are you doing about these parking charges? Why are you bringing them in? Sudbury is, come to Sudbury, free parking. It's nothing to do with £1, £2, £3, £4. It's free parking at Sudbury. I've got a shop in Cornard, and I benefit from people going to Sudbury. And I like talking to people, as you well know. They come in, and I talk to them, and they say, I'm glad it's free parking in Sudbury. That's why we're here. And I get a benefit of it, because they've stopped off at me, go to Sudbury. And I ask them, will you still come to Sudbury if there's parking charges? And they say, no. We can go to Colchester, we can go to Bury, and we can go to Ipswich. I know you'll say, oh, we're only charging £1 and they're charging £5. They don't care about that. They say, parking charges, we will go to Colchester, there's bigger stores, there's anchor stores. They come to Sudbury because there's a lot of independent shops, all struggling to make a living. We've all been through COVID, and to hit them with this, it will affect them. There's no doubt about it. The market traders, I walk down the market, they all say to me, you hope you're going to fight against parking charges. You know, they're frightened. So on the business people, I've got to stand up for them in Sudbury. They don't want parking charges because it will affect them. At the Cornard Parish Council, they're unanimous. They know it will affect people in Cornard because they won't. You know, I know you say they can walk, but some people can't walk. A lot of people have got difficulties and they can't walk, so they drive to Sudbury. Elderly people drive to Sudbury and they will not want to pay. And as what other people said, they'll start going to outside stores and it will affect Sudbury. So free parking in Sudbury has got to stay. Thank you. Within 3 minutes.
Councillor Riley, you have 3 minutes starting now.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, anybody who believes that car parking charges has no economic effect on the town is forgetting their history. Just look at Wickham Market, just look at Woodbridge, you know, and the changes that came in when parking charges happened. The shops changed, the people changed, and everything else. But what we're forgetting here is that the electorate chooses us. We don't choose our electorate. And if our electorate want free car parking, it's our job to see that they have it. That's why we're here. We're not here to say, this can't be done, that can't be done, you know, this is too much. No, it's not for us to give the dream to the electorate and say, this is what it's going to cost you and this is what you'll get. The electorate is saying, this is what we want, and it's our job to give it to them and to make sure it happens. End of address.
Thank you. Councillor Davis? No? So we now move to the vote. Councillor Rees?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just a couple of points. First of all, we all pay for services we don't use. Secondly, I don't know how many people this would impact, but has nobody's mentioned the charity shops, particularly in Sudbury. Their shifts for the people who go and give their time freely cater for the 3 hours free parking in the parking spaces. Are we going to make all those volunteers pay as well? Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Nunn.
Right. As someone born in Sudbury and having lived in the area my entire life, I'm very concerned that the possible implementation of parking charges would have a detrimental effect on local businesses at the very time that many are really struggling to survive. Something that also must not be underestimated is the possible knock-on effect of congestion on the minor roads by people trying to avoid charges on car parks. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Before we go to the vote on the... Yeah, to note the petition. That's option C or option 3 on the list.
Can I just explain?
Yeah.
Chair,
The monitoring officer will explain.
just want to explain that this is the first option. If it gets carried, that is the end of the debate. If it doesn't get carried, we then go to the next option.
Sorry. I don't understand why it's in that order. Surely the guidance that you issued us with goes in the order that...
So we've had a proposal to note the petition. We have to deal with that one first. That's the order it comes in. That is the order on there is the order that it was written in the Constitution, because I didn't know what was going to be proposed first.
Right, well, it wasn't clear to us that that would happen.
We will go through the options, but as I say, the first one is carried. That then completes the debate, if that makes sense. If it's not carried, we then move to the next option, which is proposed.
Councillor Grandon.
So can I just clarify? So if some people want it to go to supporting the petition, does that mean we have to vote against noting?
Yes, Councillor.
Thank you for clarifying.
Are we ready to go to the vote? Yes? Thank you, Councillor. I'll hand over to the Assistant Manager. Governance.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Councillor Beam, I take your vote. And Councillor Riley?
Against.
I've lost my paper.
That's all right.
There we are. Have you got Councillor Newman's vote?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Newman. Against.
I'm against.
You're against.
That's 5 against. Thank you, members. That vote is now complete. That is 17 votes for, 12 votes against, and 1 abstention. So that's carried.
So that's carried.
We now need to get on with the rest of the meeting.
Thank you very much. Councillors, well done. We're moving on now to councillor appointments. I refer you to the appointments listed on the agenda and the update in the tabled papers. Can we have one meeting, please, gentlemen? Thank you. It's late and I'm sure everybody would like to get home. Right, now where was I?
Are there any further changes?
Are there any further changes to appointments? Could I have a proposer and a seconder? Proposer, please. Councillor Councillor Plum. And a seconder, please. Councillor Busby.
Do all hands, do a hands up. Just show a hand.
We'll do a show of hands then. Everybody in favour?
That's carried.
That's carried. Okay. And last but not least, are we having one meeting or several? Councillor Potter?
I think he was just voting.
Oh, you're still voting? You're not voting. Okay. Right, we're moving on to item 13, which is motions on notice. None were received, so at 21:12 I declare this meeting closed.